in the process as well. This is the breakdown. 9 shots from Arsenal to Liverpool's 8. It's actually the fewest shots that Arsenal have had here since New Year's Day 2022, 4 years. Touches in the opposition box, 23 to Liverpool's 11. But really this was a story of two halves. Liverpool incidentally without a shot on target for the first time since March 2010. They came very close. Conor Bradley hit the bar. But have a look at this breakdown. And particularly the passes in the final third tells an interesting story. Arsenal with 113 to Liverpool's 28 in that first half. A half which the home side really dominated without managing to find that final edge. In the second half, almost a complete role reversal, 45 for Arsenal. Liverpool with 93 as they really managed to grab a hold in it. What was behind that, do you think, Roy?
Well, I think Arsenal maybe got a bit tentative. You know, before the game was sort of Arsenal going on to win the game, but I think the longer the game went on from Arsenal's point of view and they thought Liverpool looked comfortable in possession, they just probably thought, well, we'll maybe just take the draw. You know, a point's not the end of the world for them. I think the worry for them would have been, I suppose, not you keep a clean sheet and you take a point, you're the positives, but that Liverpool kind of dominated the game so much. Okay, they had no cutting edge, but I think it was the way Arsenal didn't go and take the initiative. And I think there was a bit of tension in the stadium, and obviously that will get worse in the latter part of the season. So that would be a worry. But all credit goes to Liverpool in terms of the way they dominated possession. Now, usually when you sit in, when I was watching Liverpool the first half, when Liverpool win it back, they weren't looking to break quickly. They were just looking to control the ball and kind of take the energy out of the stadium, which they've done perfectly well. The only disappointing thing from Liverpool is we just saw the stats there. No real cutting edge, didn't have enough quality. Yeah, they're missing important attacking players. But they showed a bit of fight, they showed a bit of swagger that they are champions, but still didn't have that, obviously, kind of belief, cutting edge, they'd score a goal.
And what did you make, Daniel, of Arsenal's approach in the second half? Was it that they couldn't push Liverpool back, or they didn't really want to?
It's a strange one, really, because I think that first half performance, you go in as a player typically, and you know the manager will get the videos out and he'll show you what's working, what they need to change in order to improve. And I think whatever information they got, I think Liverpool's conversations they had at half time probably were better. Arsenal didn't really seem to have a lot of solutions to break them down. Liverpool took a lot of the control out of the game. They found the outball to Frimpong, which they didn't use in the first half. That wasn't on as often. And to Roy's point, I don't think Arsenal took the initiative. There did feel like there was tension. It did feel as if the players were content a little bit. But of course, these are things that happen sometimes. As players, you go out there and you get that feeling like, damn, we should have broken down. And then you come out second half, the other team starts better than you, and then you sort of think you go into your shell a little bit. It seemed that's how Arsenal kind of went into their shell a little bit.
Football, we watch football all the time, and we look at Arsenal, we give them all the praise before the game. The table doesn't lie, the amount of games they've won, brilliantly defensively, but they look like they lacked a bit of belief tonight, which is really bizarre when you're looking at a team that are flying, top of the table. Liverpool are coming, missing some important players. You're thinking, go on, just again, flex your muscles, send a message to your teams that you're going to go on to the next level and get a bigger lead in terms of the league table points. But they kind of lacked belief. Rice was a bit sloppy. There's a little bit of second half. Lewis Skelly came on. He looked didn't even look ready to come on the pitch. And if Liverpool had a bit more about them, then it could have been a lot worse for Arsenal.
This evening to see this one. Have we seen this film before, Roy? It all seems very nicely set up for Arsenal, this.
Yeah, it is. And obviously there's been doubts over the last few years that they had the strength and depth. But certainly this year, I think with the recruitment, you look at the bench tonight, it's all set up for Arsenal to go on and win the title. They're so strong, they're so aggressive, real goal threat, strength and depth, physically, obviously they're very, very good, not giving much away at the back. Obviously a win tonight, big challenge again from tonight with the other team slipping up yesterday. It's there for them to go and grab it and take it and embrace the challenge and go and win that title. Everything's set up for Arsenal. If you gave me a choice which dressing room I'd like to be in terms of trying to win the league this year, 100% be in the Arsenal dressing room. I think it's geared up for them. They've got to go now and take this opportunity.
It does feel, Daniel, like the Arsenal fans are coming here ready almost for a celebration. The chance to go 8 points clear. What can Liverpool do to stop them?
Well, firstly, they've got to be, mentally ready for the battle. It's going to be a tough game for them tonight. physically all over the pitch. They've got to impose their will on Arsenal, which is a difficult task for any team. And try and create chances as well. I think they've been lacking that cutting edge in front of goal, and certainly on set pieces. Arsenal's strength is set pieces. It's about sticking to that task tonight and trying to avoid, conceding one of those. That's what we know Arsenal for. And it's going to be a tough night. We know that they're not in their best moment in terms of the performances and the standards they've set over the last, maybe 6 or 7 seasons, and particularly last season when they won the league. But in the end, these are the type of nights as a top player that you want to perform in, that you want to show your level. And it's a good barometer for them to see where they're at as a team now. The unbeaten run is the unbeaten run, but they've not faced a team like Arsenal in that.
Who knows if Liverpool have a surprise in store in it, but it does feel it would be a surprise based on the form of these two teams right now, Gary. And I suppose 8 points even would not be a guarantee of title success, because there have been moments in the past, 7 of them, when teams have had a lead of 8 points or more and failed to win the title, and Manchester United featured twice on that list. But do you think this Arsenal team are made of sterner stuff if they do get to 8 points?
I do, and obviously looking at that graphic, when I look at those teams, there are a couple of things that happen to those teams. Either they're very good teams that get injuries, which means they get caught, or they weren't good enough in the first place and they'd never won it before, and they end up, to be fair, struggling mentally towards the end. I think with Arsenal having been through these last 2 or 3 seasons of experiences, they've obviously bolstered the squad. And when I look at Arsenal's second 11 with the way the league currently is, I think their second 11 would currently finish in the top 4 in the Premier League. I think they're that good in terms of their squad. I think they're really, really good. There's no drop-off now between any player, other than probably Declan Rice. I think every other player beneath the one that's in the squad, in the team, is at excellent level. Have you noticed a sort of shift in the Arsenal mentality, Roy?
Well, if you look back earlier in the season when Liverpool beat them, there's a lot of criticism come Arsenal's way after the game. The manager's not brave enough, too defensive-minded. And whatever's happened over the last few months, they've got a little more belief, a lot more confidence. They've obviously got match winners. We spoke about set pieces, but it's not just set pieces now. It's just about, we saw the other night again, players playing off the cuff, people going past people. No, I think they're excellent. I think it's geared up from, and I think there's more to come from this Arsenal team. I don't think this Arsenal team will be a case of trying to hold on and be, obviously you look over your shoulder, but I think they'll be focused on, we can improve, we can get stronger. And again, we go back to it, any injuries, or when players are suspended over the last few weeks when they've made changes, you don't even notice. Remember last year too, if Saka was missing or Rice, you'd be thinking, these are big losses. But no, when these players are missing, players are coming in almost just as good as them. And that strength and depth will obviously be the difference between now and the end of the season and getting their hands on that title.
Right, let's get to Manchester United, where Darren Fletcher has spoken for the first time as the interim head coach at Old Trafford. We can hear from him now.
Good evening, Darren. Hi. I mean, lovely to see you. It must be a huge honour to be asked to lead Manchester United, especially with your affinity to the club. What have the last 24 hours been like for you?
Yes, surreal. As you say, it's an amazing honour, I think, to be able to lead a Manchester United team. I don't even think it's in my wildest dreams that was something that could potentially happen. I think even thinking about playing for the club and stuff like that, but to lead out a team is an amazing honour and something I'm really proud to do, not in the circumstances I expected it to happen. So that obviously is something that doesn't sit quite easy with me, but I've just to think of, I've got a job to do and I've got to lead the team tomorrow and think of the great honour and pride in doing that.
What conversations have you had with Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, about how long you could be in charge for and maybe what that looks like going forward? Yeah, so I've had conversation and it's the focus was on this game, and then we'll speak after the game. So it all happened very quickly on Monday morning. I had a game to prepare and a quick turnaround, training session to organise, speak to the players. So the focus has been, because of the quick turnaround from the Leeds game, the focus has been on the Burnley match, and then we'll speak after the game, because I think it's important that we give the Burnley match the respect and focus it needs to prepare the team in such a short space of time. Thank you.
Hi, Darren. Obviously, the natural question people will be asking is, do you want to stay on beyond? Obviously, you've done so many jobs at this club. Dan's mentioned the affinities you have to. Would you like to try and earn the manager's job full time?
Honestly, it's not something I've thought about. I'm focusing on Burnley. I think that discussion's for after the game, as I said, there's been that much going on. It's all happened so quickly. All my concentration and efforts and thoughts are gone into Burnley, and I know that sounds like a generic answer, but it is what it is, yeah.
What's the backroom team going to look like for you in this game, next game, however long it is?
Yeah, so obviously Travis Binion, who leads the under-21s, who I started my coaching career with in the academy, who I've known for the 5 years that I've been here. I'm actually couldn't ask for anybody better beside me than Travis. We've got such a close relationship, worked together for such a long time, somebody I respect, somebody who I've learned a lot from. His assistant Alan Wright, who newly joined the club as well, so the under-21 staff come and join me, and Johnny Evans has come in to help as well, so somebody who's great association with the club, recently played, knows the players, comfortable in the environment, and a familiar face for the group and the players as well, so those three will assist me for the game tomorrow.
Darren, a lot's been said about Manchester United over the last few months. What is your feeling of where this club is? You obviously are the epitome of Manchester United. Is one of your tasks to reconnect it with its roots in a way?
Well, for a game, it's to try and win a football match against Burnley. I think I've had a few different roles at the club, obviously coaching the under-18s just now. My focus and energy every time I've been at the club in whatever role is always to do the best for Manchester United and try and help the club, help the people that I'm working with, the players, the staff, and try and do everything I can to help Manchester United be successful. And as we say, everyone expects Manchester United to be on the top and winning. That's the standard. That's what we all have to try and achieve. That's the standard that's set for everyone at the club. And I just do my best in whatever role I'm in to help make that happen.
And in terms of the squad, obviously Ruben's had a lot of players missing. Are any of those players going to be back?
Well, I think Ruben alluded to it. I think Mason and Bruno, I think they were pushing to play against Leeds. The decision was that they weren't quite ready, so they've trained, so they should be back in the squad. But they'll be on managed minutes as well and restricted minutes because they've obviously just returned to training. So that's good news, especially the fact that obviously players who've been in good form. Mason Mount's form has been fantastic, and Bruno Fernandes, you don't have to speak about Bruno, he's a captain, he's a leader of the team, so to have them available for selection is obviously great news for me and for the players and for the club and for the fans.
Darren, what are the chances that Jack and Tyler Fletcher get full debuts against Burnley?
Well, I'd be disclosing team information before the game, and I'm not going to do that and give anything away. Look, for me, they were in the training group on Monday because that was already arranged before I got there. They've been in the squad recently, but obviously we've got a couple of players back from injury, so we'll assess that tomorrow. We still have to assess a couple of players tomorrow as well because of the short turnaround from games. So they're in the periphery squad, but whether they make the match squad, I don't know yet. Well, that remains to be seen.
On a more serious note, what will your Manchester United look like?
Well, hopefully it looks like a Manchester United team that represents a bit of me. I think in terms of and what I know is Manchester United. So I hope it resembles a Manchester United team that fans can be proud of, that I can be proud of. And I'm sure they will, because I believe in the players. I think we've got good players, and I think we've got players who care, and I think we've got a lot of quality in that team. And I hope to give them a platform to go out there to express themselves and to show that. And also to challenge them to, it's about them, it's not about me. It's their season, it's their careers, it's their opportunity. I'm here to help them. But they're the ones who have to cross that white line and go on the pitch and make it happen, so give them some responsibility to go and do that.
Interesting to hear there from Darren Fletcher. I mean, the fascinating one was he hasn't thought about it yet in terms of long term. Really, I don't know. But how about that for an interview? How did he do you feel?
Yeah, it's tricky for him. I mean, he's in charge for one game. Like, clearly the names that are being shown before are going to be in for the interim shout. So yeah, he might just start his own son tomorrow up front if I was Darren Fletcher. But
yeah, not a bad idea.
No, it's tricky because clearly he's a legend from the club. He's had so much success under Sir Alex, so he knows what the fans demand and the way Manchester United should be playing. So he's trying to implement that in such a short space and short time. But yeah, he'll be attacking. He'll be trying to make the fans proud of what he's gonna tell the players to do tomorrow.
Yeah, and in terms of the players that are there listening to that now, how will they feel? They've got him in charge. He's solely focused on that next game against Burnley. He said that a fair few times. How would you be feeling in the dressing room as a player right now?
to be fair, they've got a lot of experience in that squad, and you need your experienced players to stand up, like the Brunos, who really have to lead the team and support Darren Fletcher as well. It's listen, it's never good that the manager goes, and it's a really unsettling time for everyone involved, and it's such a important time for the club. I think there's a lot of games there, and the decision has to be made quickly, because it's never great where you've got people uncertain who's the manager, who's the leader, who's the captain of the ship. And I think that's what Manchester will be looking to appoint somebody in charge permanently or interim to the end of the season very quickly.
Just finally on Ruben Amorim, did it surprise you this happened? Because, you know, I remember you and I sat here when Ratcliffe gave him this vote of confidence, said actually, you know, we're going to give him 3 years, and he's, you know, going to have free rein to do whatever. Did this garner pace pretty quickly, and did it surprise you?
I think we were kind of smiling when that vote of confidence came, because you can't promise somebody 3 years. You can't give Liam Racine 6.5 years. As long as the results are there, they have to, obviously, the results talk. And I think it's a similar thing there, where Sir Ratcliffe obviously came out and said that he was going to support Amorim, but clearly there was so many issues behind the scenes. And I think ultimately it's a power struggle that happened. We don't know the exact details of it, but he was expecting to be a bit more like a manager, maybe more input in signings. And here we are, the January window, and I think there must have been a big fallout on signings or people leaving. And yeah, I think that's really one of the big reasons, I think, why the relationship broke down.
After 14 months in charge. Sky Sports' Jamie Carragher joins me now. Jamie, great to be chatting to you. You spoke at length about Amorim on your show last night, saying he was in no position to challenge the club's hierarchy. They clearly felt the same. What do you make of the news?
Yeah, I mean, listen, a little bit similar to Maresca in that I think what we're seeing now in football is sporting directors now are the most powerful people at football clubs. And, you know, if a manager, you know, steps out of line, certainly publicly, and criticises, you know, the powers that be or the people above them, it's going to have consequences. And listen, I think that's probably the same in sort of most jobs, really. So not surprised. Maybe the timing of coming so quickly, because it's not an ideal time, I think, for anybody to change a manager. You know, with so many games coming thick and fast, but I think it just shows now where the game's going in terms of, you know, the sporting directors at Chelsea and Manchester United, and probably other clubs now up and down the country. They're not accepting a manager, certainly, you know, criticising the club or making cryptic comments in public.
Yeah, we do understand things came to a head in a meeting with Director of Football Jason Wilcox when he reacted badly to feedback about his tactics pretty quickly, as you said, just last week. Do you have any sympathy for Amorim?
Not really. No, I think listen, he's done a brilliant job at Sporting Lisbon, and he looked like a bright young sort of manager who could go on to to great things. Manchester United, the people who are there right now, gave him a great opportunity to manage one of the biggest and best football clubs in the world, and it couldn't have gone much worse in terms of results. So I don't have too much sympathy, and that's why I was so critical of him last night on extra time, because basically the people who'd given him the opportunity, he hadn't sort of fulfilled their sort of ambitions in what he was going to do, for the football club. So they could have easily taken a decision a lot earlier than this to change the manager, maybe even at the end of last season on the back of the Europa League final. It was such a poor performance. It wasn't just about the results. And when you look at the league table with the 17 ever-present teams that have been part of the Premier League since Amorim's come in, I think Manchester United are 14th to 15th in that table. So, I mean, and that tells its own story.
Jamie, since joining Sky, you've watched and analysed numerous managers who've tried to get it right and failed at Manchester United. Where does Amorim rank for you in the post-Fergie era?
Well, he's probably at the bottom of that list, I would say. Because, I mean, you think it can't get much worse for Manchester United. And we've been critical of other managers because they haven't won the league, or maybe they just missed out on the Champions League. But we're talking about a team who finished, I think, 15th last season. That can't happen at a club the size of Manchester United, with the money that they spend every year, the players that they bring in. So I mean, at times we've looked at it and been critical of other management, namely Ten Hag. But I think the worst it was for him, they finished 8th. You know, so it shows you how bad it was at times last season. I know they find themselves, I think, in 5th position right now. But listen, they were never convincing at any stage, really, this season. And I think that the league is so tight that even teams who are in sort of 5th, 6th, 7th position right now could easily end up sort of 4 or 5 places further down the table very quickly because the league is so tight.
Yeah, as a pundit, did Amorim make your life any easier with some of his damning criticisms of his own team? The worst in Manchester United history springs to mind.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the best part of Ruben Amorim was actually his performances in the press conference, and not the performances of his team. I think he was a great addition, you know, to the Premier League in terms of, as I said, press conferences, doing interviews, coming out with one-liners. You know, he's very quotable. He was great for us. I mean, that was an unbelievable thing to say, as I said, that we lapped up. But I mean, it was I couldn't believe that came out of his mouth, actually. You know, when talking about your own players and your own team, and at times it felt like he was almost like as good a pundit as Gary Neville when talking about Manchester United. So I think, you know, for 14 months he probably took the mantle as the best pundit on Manchester United, actually. But the problem was he was the manager.
Yeah, you've already mentioned their current position in the Premier League. They are 6th, and in that fight for Champions League football, how risky a decision is it to change at this stage, do you think?
I don't actually think it is that much of a risk, really. I think if Manchester United could get somebody until the end of the season, or whether they have something lined up, I don't know. But I think a competent manager, Premier League manager, should be able to get Manchester United really close to the Champions League positions and really competing for them. Now, people will say, well, that's where Manchester United are right now. And that tells you the story of the Premier League this season. I don't think Manchester United have ever convinced at any stage under Amorim that things were really looking good, and they still find themselves in a healthy position in terms of a league position. As I said before, that can change really quickly because the league is so tight. But I think a good, you know, Premier League manager, there's enough talent in that squad, can have a real push, certainly for European positions. But the way the season is this season, when you look how poor Liverpool have been, how poor Chelsea have been as well, there could be a real, you know, opportunity for them to get Champions League. I don't think that will happen, but I do think Manchester United should have more than enough to get, you know, a European position.
We are coming up to 2 years of INEOS, and appointing Amorim was their biggest call to date. How much responsibility lies with them for this?
I think a lot, because they were going with someone who had a system that was sort of just not what Manchester United was about. It doesn't mean that system can't work. You know, we've seen managers, you know, namely Glasner this season with that system. But even in the past, when you talk about one of the giants of the Premier League, Chelsea have had it twice and been successful with Conte winning the Premier League title and Thomas Tuchel winning the Champions League. So it doesn't mean that the system couldn't work, but it certainly wasn't what you'd expect from, you know, Manchester United with the history and tradition the club have in terms of, you know, really exciting, fast, wide players. That, you know, that system doesn't really buy into that. So the fact that he was chosen and they knew that he played that system and had great success at Sporting Lisbon means I think, you know, a lot of the books does stop at them.
Jamie, what do you think United should do now? We know that Darren Fletcher is in interim charge, and, you know, there have been some suggestions that they should wait until the summer when a host of names are available. What's your take?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. I don't think, you know, the manager pool is certainly full right now in terms of, you know, great candidates. I mean, you look at Chelsea now bringing in Liam Rosini. He's a really good young coach. He's obviously in their system, but that is not what Chelsea are used to or should expect, really, or deserve. And I said that's not being disrespectful to Liam Rosini. He's a young coach. He's made a great stride. He's done brilliant in his, you know, his young journey so far. But that, you know, managing Chelsea, you know, one of the biggest football clubs and successful football clubs in the last 10, 15, 20 years is not what they should have. So that tells its own story. I'm not quite sure where Manchester United go, but I do think it probably clever to wait till the summer when there's maybe more coaches available from other clubs, or, you know, round about the you know, the World Cup situation.
Is managing Manchester United, is that still an attractive job, or do you think it's a poison chalice, Jamie?
No, it's an attractive job. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world and always will be, and should be a huge attraction to any manager. And I imagine being the guy who gets that right. You know, you go back to Sir Alex Ferguson getting that right in these, arguably, you know, well, certainly one of the greatest managers we've ever seen. in Wales football, and when he took it over, it was probably seen as a poison chalice. Hadn't won the league for over 20 years, and we're probably not far away from that again right now. But someone sooner or later will get it right at Manchester United. The club is too big to consistently fail. Someone will get that right, but hopefully that's in a good few years yet.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
What is your reaction to this, Adam? Did you expect it this morning?
Yes, I'm going to be completely honest. You cannot go against the board the way that Ruben Amorim did and question everything that they are doing and what their processes are, who's doing what role, who should be doing what job. Like Ruben said in that press conference, I think everybody looked at that and everyone's reaction to it straight away was he's just signed his resignation letter right there. You can't do that against the boards. Maresca literally just did the same thing with Chelsea. As soon as you mention anything above you, board level, or come to the media and do that, then that's pretty much it. I think this was on the wall.
Do you think he knew, he's looked at the Maresca situation, he's looked at the Nuno situation, and has thought, you know what, I've had enough of this. And if you're, as a manager, if you kind of do want the sack and you've had enough of what you're doing and where you are, you go against the board and inevitably, straight away they're going to make a decision. And they've done that straight away. I think he wanted the sack.
Do you know what? I would normally argue against you, Jamie, on that because I've defended Ruben quite a bit, but this is so out of character. You're probably right in a way because he never ever does anything like he has done in these last few press conferences. Something definitely happened behind the scenes, and we've seen it the last few, him walking off, for instance. Ruben's been brutally honest and answered every single question, going back to what Jamie Jackson of The Guardian asked him in the pre-match press conference ahead of the Leeds game, where he says, I'm not going to talk about that. That was regarding his formation and transfers to fit that formation. I'm not going to talk about that. It's like, well, and Jamie Jackson came back at him and said, literally, that's not like you, Ruben, to not answer. So straight away, the warning sign was there. And then going after that game against Leeds, some would say that was a creditable draw. There was no reason to really go in and say what he said, but I think it was planned. It looked like he had everything laid out what he wanted to say. He had it he had it specifically laid out, I think, as well here. And I think that was the big tell. I think he actually thought, you know what? You're going to have to pay me out of here. You're going to have to sack me. And I think it was writing on the wall from them first press conferences at the back end of last week.
Yeah, I said it on Friday and I'll say it again. When it came to Enzo Maresca, I said that if I go on a podcast and slag off Sky Sports News, I can't expect to keep my job. And that's what Maresca did. It looks like that's what Amorim did. This is an interesting question for you, Adam. Are you actually happy that he's gone?
No, not happy that he's gone. For the overall feeling as a football fan, again, is sacking a manager. No one likes it. The ultimate feeling I've got right now is that I'm a bit gutted we've sacked another manager because it looks like my football club has got no idea what it's doing again. That's how I feel right now. Obviously, I understand the results basis of that, and obviously the results are not great for Manchester United, and inevitably the writing's on the wall, like we just said. But overall, right now, I think a decision needed to be made. So in terms of that ruthlessness and what needed to happen, I think, yes, I understand, decision made, let's move on now. But overall, it just makes Manchester United look like a bit of a circus again. And we're back to where we was from when INEOS first took over. And everything that they've done and everything that they've put in place looks like it's a joke again.
He calls this, though, Amorim. His poor performances,
Jamie, one second.
Tactics.
Sorry, Jamie, I've got to interrupt again. And Adam, just stay where you are as well. I'm going to come back to both of you, so just hold that thought. I promise we'll get back to you. But we are going to go back to Daniel Kahn, who's in Manchester, because I believe you've now got the club statement, Daniel.
Yeah, and there's some big news in it, and we'll get to that point. But let me just read it out for you, Tom. This is from Manchester United. Ruben Amorim has departed his role as head coach of Manchester United. Ruben was appointed in November 2024 and led the team to UEFA Europa League final in Bilbao in May. With Manchester United sitting 6th in the Premier League, the club's leadership has reluctantly made the decision that it is the right time to make a change. This will give the team the best opportunity of the highest possible Premier League finish. The club would like to thank Ruben for his contribution to the club and wishes him well for the future. Darren Fletcher will take charge of the team against Burnley on Wednesday. So very interesting there, Tom. He will take the team
away to Turf Moor on Wednesday. Darren Fletcher, of course, part of the club's academy staff. He currently coaches the under-18s and, of course, a club legend at Manchester United. And, I mean, we're getting these developments as it happens. But very interesting that they talk about this gives them the best possible finish in the Premier League, they believe, because they are 6th in the Premier League, but maybe a readjustment of expectations, because we know this year Manchester United's target is European football, whatever form that is. But perhaps being 6th, just a few points off a top 4 place, they just weren't seeing that consistency in results, as I was talking about earlier. We'll bring you more as we have it throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you. Let's go back to Jamie and Adam, and we'll get to your question in a second. Jamie, just on that, Darren Fletcher, I mean, the statement was fairly standard, but then that last bit about Darren Fletcher taking charge for Wednesday's game, that was the bit that really stood out there. We don't know how long he's going to get, but you've done this with Giggs as interim, you've done it with Carragher, you've done it with Van Nistelrooy. This time it's Fletcher. What do you think about that?
I think it was just whoever's available at the moment to take charge of the Burnley game. I don't think Darren Fletcher is the right choice to continue with Manchester United through the end of this season. I'll say that now. I don't think he's got the experience. He's only just come into that coaching role for the under-18s this season. I understand he probably knows the players. Well, actually, probably he doesn't know the players. This is it's a bit of a shock to me as a United fan right now reacting to this, because again, I get why Fletcher's there. It's the obvious choice. He's a coach at Manchester United. He's well known at Manchester United. But past that, we cannot have Darren Fletcher running our football club or this team this season. There needs to be somebody else brought in. There needs to be a plan. And United fans now will be waiting for the next announcement. Like, what's your plan, Ineos? Where do we go from here? Because this was your man that you put everything behind him, Ruben Amorim. So Jim Radcliffe coming out and saying that he was going to get 3 years to prove that he's the right manager. Only 6 weeks later, he's sacked. We need to know what's happening next. And Darren Fletcher, I love Darren Fletcher. He's not the answer. And I'm probably going to be in agreement with most Man United fans now in saying that I'd be worried if they thought that he was going to be the mantle the rest of the season.
Then? Go on, James.
I don't think Darren Fletcher's going to be the guy in charge for long. I think they need a face that everyone knows. They need a face that people can relate to. He's Man United. He's been there. He knows the football club. This has been a whirlwind for them as well. With Ruben Amorim coming out last night saying what he said, they've had to act quickly. So they need to get someone in. Who do people know? Who can we rely on? Who can we trust? Darren Fletcher. But they're going to be drawing up a list now of potential managers. Who their managers are, I don't know.
Who would you want, Adam? Who would you be happy with? Who should be on that list? Who would be your number one?
Wow, when you look at it, you look at the obvious. You've got Oliver Glasner from Crystal Palace, although Ineos might want to try and bring an interim in and save money until the end of the season when he's out of contract.
Glasgow, he won't cost a lot, will he? He won't cost a lot if he's in the last 6 months of his contract.
Well, this is debate. This is the debate. United fans now will come out and say, well, you need to act like Manchester United now. An interim isn't going to do. You need to go out and get a manager that's the future of this football club. So I get what Jamie's saying there. They're obviously taken aback by this. They probably weren't expecting to have to sack Ruben today. But Darren Fletcher, for the Burnley game, fair enough. Obviously, you just need to react to the news and get someone in to take charge of the game. Past that, you've got Xavi there, you've got Maresca there right now. And them names are not names that Man United fans will be filled with confidence with. Obviously, you've got bigger names out there as well. I mean, who's available? You've got Zidane who's out there. There's Laurent Blanc out there. I'm really struggling to think who comes in right now this season and takes the reins. Obviously, interim-wise, do you go back? They say never go back. You've got Ole, you've got Ruud, you've got Carragher. There's so many different names could be thrown into the hat right now.
I mean, Southgate seemed to be kind of an Ashworth man, and Ashworth isn't there anymore because Southgate does kind of, just because he was linked in the past. I'm just looking at a list of
forget Maresca because he's had the same problem at Chelsea. So he's not going to go to Manchester United because he's going to be dealing with the same problem that Amorim's just had. So if Maresca's out, Zidane, he doesn't speak English, right?
I don't think he does.
So I think he's always said that he's never going to want to go to a club where he can't speak the language. So I don't think Zidane's there. Michael Carrick, is he ready for the job? You got Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. You know, he's been at Man United for a long time. Kieran McKenna was there for a long time. They loved him. Proper coach. And if we're looking at Liam Rosenior and going to Chelsea, it wouldn't surprise me if Manchester United look at a situation where they'd take a Kieran McKenna because they want someone who's going to come in, be a head coach, is going to answer to what they want to do. You know, don't question the signings. You come in, you coach the team. I think that if that's the model that they're looking at, don't be surprised if it is a Kieran McKenna.
That is the problem, isn't it? You just laid it out there. It's what INEOS want, what fits them. Because the problem's come about because Ruben Amorim didn't agree with their structure and what they wanted to do. So is it a yes man that comes in? I'm not being disrespectful to McKenna in saying that he is that type of manager there, but the head coach thing was brought up by Ruben Amorim for a reason, quite clearly in that press conference, and that's not going to float. So effectively, you could take big names out of the equation here because they want to have more of a say to work their magic, and that's where I think the United fans will worry even more because them managers or the head coaches coming in that we're talking about, none have got the experience level to deal with the players at Manchester United or a club of this size. Not one of them have. And like you said with Rosinha, I think that's a bizarre move as well. That's only a temporary one for Chelsea. They can't continue, I don't feel, with Rosinha in charge of them. I honestly...
This is the model that these people are going for, though, right? This is the model.
McKenna is actually, I've just looked it up, McKenna is officially manager, not head coach at Ipswich. But whether that means something, doesn't mean anything. If you're going from Ipswich to Manchester United...
Yeah, Ipswich to Man United is a different story.
Yeah.
But we can argue about, this model that the people are adopting. Chelsea, we're seeing Man United. It looks like this is a model that they've got of sporting director. They're in charge. Amorim's he's had enough of it, but then you've got, the problem they've got now is, it's all right sacking the manager. That's fine. You've sacked him, he's gone. You've got to replace him. You've still got half the season left. There's still things to play for.
Well, Champions League to play for.
Yeah, this is a massive time of the season.
Well, so Tom just said it there. United are 6. We're literally in contention for Champions League. The FA Cup's coming up against Brighton. You've got big games coming up this month. We've got Manchester City at home, you've got Arsenal away, and you've got the FA Cup all in January. This is a massive month for this football club right now, and this season could literally pivot off what happens in January. So this appointment, the one that's coming next as the manager, the interim to the end of the season, or the next permanent manager, is massive. I think it will be interim, and then probably someone like Glasner in the summer. That's just how I see this.
I don't think you'll have an interim till the end of the season. I can't see that happening. I think you're going to go. I think you'll get a manager in the next 2-3 weeks. You have to. You can't have an interim manager
or a coach. A manager or a coach, Jamie.
Well, you're going to have a head coach. You're not going to have an interim. Darren Fletcher is not going to take charge of Man United until the end of the season.
What about Carrick? Would Carrick be the man?
What's Carrick going to leave?
Well, you had Carrick. You had Carrick as an interim and didn't give him the job.
Why would he leave and become interim? If he's going to become the head coach on a 3-year contract, then of course. But he's not going to come in as interim. No way.
Well, he could. I suppose he could. He's out of work. It would be like, I've just got something to show you here, Adam, in terms of, obviously, Amorim has now gone. And this is, when I saw this stat this morning, I was quite surprised by it. Of all the clubs who've been in the Premier League since Ruben Amorim took charge, Manchester United got the 4th fewest points. Wolves, West Ham and Tottenham are the only ones below them with just 15 wins in that time. Did it surprise you as much as it surprised me?
No, because Manchester United fans have always picked up on this. The car crash of a season last season, the lack of wins last season, it's quite not surprised at all. I'm just glad that it's Jamie on today with us and he's that Spurs team ahead of us in that league table right there. But anyone else could be really going in on Manchester United right now, but that there tells you everything. And when you look at it on a purely football basis, forget the circus, which was the recent press conferences. The writing on paper was on the wall pretty much there with Ruben's results anyway. The pressure was building without all of the outbursts about what role he's actually got at the football club. The results were not good enough at Manchester United. And you drop points against Wolves, who are pretty much relegated, and then to Leeds, who are newly promoted, back-to-back, on top of what you're saying in press conferences. With that record that you've just brought up there, Tom, INEOS are like what Jamie Carragher said last night, does he have enough credit in the bank to even come up against the board now?
No,
and the results don't give him that. They don't give him that option.
He ain't good enough. It's as simple as that. He ain't good enough. I know you're upset.
You have said that for a while, Jim.
Well, I know, yeah, Man United fans will be upset because, you know, you think, oh, it's another manager, gets the sack, it's turmoil and, you know, turning a page and starting again. Good riddance. He ain't good enough to be the Man United manager. Simple as that. You stuck at him, you stuck with him because you thought we'd give him a chance, you know, and we're going to stick by him and we need to give managers time. He ain't good enough. You've seen it. The stats are there. They don't lie. Man United are nowhere near good enough. They've not been good enough since he's come in. He made the club worse. And he come out with all this spill about how he wanted to play and his philosophy and where we want to take the club and this and that, changing the culture, blah, blah, blah. He ain't good enough. Jamie Carragher got it bang on. There's huge pressure. You come in, you've got to be a good enough manager. And he's proven that he isn't.
Yeah, results will determine a manager's fate no matter what happens behind the scenes. We've all banged the drum about the culture change and everything and the work that's gone on behind the scenes. That's all fine. But we know as Manchester United fans, whenever the results are down the way they are, the speculation and the news and the negativity around the club are just going to take over everything. You have to be winning games as a Man United manager, and Ruben hasn't won enough games. And that's what it's always going to come down to. The fact that he's called the ownership out has just speeded up the process of him losing his job, I feel. And they're the facts, I think, that you've got to deal with there. And I think everyone knew this was coming. It's going to be a difficult job pleasing Man United fans, whoever comes in now. This is going to be one that's going to cause numerous debates going around all of the different podcasts and whatnot now for the next few weeks. I've got no idea, honestly, which way they go or how they're looking at this. I think it might actually be the head coach sort of role. I wouldn't be surprised if someone else is lined up for the summer, though. I really wouldn't.
Okay. All right, Adam, great to have you on.
Thanks,
good timing, thank you.
Cheers, guys. See you later.
It is massive breaking news and much, much, much more to come here on Sky Sports FC as Manchester United sack Ruben Amorim. Is that Manchester United have sacked Ruben Amorim. OK, Jamie predicted it just a few minutes ago. He has gone. We understand he met with Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada this morning and they informed him that he was being relieved of his duties. Right, our reporter Daniel Kahn is there at Manchester United for us. Right, Daniel, just tell us more about this, how it's come about.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, just to recap that breaking news, Manchester United have sacked their head coach, Ruben Amorim, after 14 months in charge. He met with the director of football, Jason Wilcox, and CEO Omar Barada this morning, who, as you mentioned, have relieved him of his duties. Now, this comes after his post-match comments after that 1-1 draw at Ellen Road yesterday, where he kept repeatedly saying he is the manager of Manchester United, not their head coach. But as we reported late last night, there'd been increased tension between Ruben Amorim and the hierarchy at Manchester United, especially between director of football Jason Wilcox, and that has led to the United boss leaving the club after 14 months. I told you earlier this morning there'd been a mood shift in recent weeks. This has been building up for weeks now, especially since Christmas Eve, and it seems like it has now come to a result of Ruben Amorim now leaving Manchester United just after that 1-1 draw yesterday. Incredible news this morning.
Yeah, it definitely is, Daniel, and Jamie's going to get involved in this as well. It was very strange last night, wasn't it, when he said, I am a manager, not a coach. But we know that his title is head coach, and it confused everybody there. He seemed to be taking a dig at transfers. I mean, was he supposed to have a say in transfers? Because normally a head coach doesn't have that much of a say.
Yeah, Tom, I think there's two components to this. I think there's one that I think when he was referencing he's a manager, and he also referenced big names like Thomas Tuchel, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte. I think what he was saying there is he doesn't want to be dictated to like these big name managers in terms of their style of play. They will play however they want and deploy their teams however they want to win football games. And as we reported last night, a lot of this strained relationship between Amorim and the hierarchy had been about the tactical approach of the team this season. We know Amorim has always consistently been bullish about his 3-4-3 system. We've seen that tweet in recent weeks against the likes of Bournemouth, that 4-4 draw at Old Trafford, the win against Newcastle. But then in the last two games, he reverted back to his 3-4-3 against Wolves, Leeds yesterday, two uninspiring performances. And I think there were real questions raised this season around his system. I remember when they played Fulham at Craven Cottage, Marco Silva, Calvin Bassey and Alex Iwobi all talking so openly about how easy it was to play against Amorim's team. I think with a hierarchy that raised serious questions. Grimsby away, although they played a slightly weakened team, continuing with three centre-backs away to Grimsby. Serious questions having gone out of the Carabao Cup at that stage. Brentford away was also a very questionable performance in that loss as well at the G-Tech Stadium. So I think this has been building for a while. Transfers has been a separate issue. From what I understand, that hasn't been the main reason for their tensions. Although they had different strategies about it, Amorim wanted to spend this month, whereas the likes of Jason Wilcox and the likes of Christopher Vell, head of recruitment, looking at transfers, they didn't want to make the previous mistakes of the previous regimes at the club, really risking their future windows, really wanting to reinforce long-term the midfield, for example. We know they have a short list of the likes of Carlos Baliba, Elliot Anderson, Adam Morton. If they spent this month, that would put moves like that in jeopardy. And that's something, while being sixth in the table and just a few points off a Champions League place, they don't want to do this month. So look, there's been a few components to this, and it just felt like they ended up on the wrong sides of this argument, and now that has resulted in Ruben Amorim leaving the club.
Yeah, it's big news. Daniel will be back with you later in the day, no doubt. Thank you. To leave this situation now, where Darren Fletcher is in charge, there is talk of this interim manager who's going to come in until the end of the season when the next one is going to arrive in the summer. How do you see this?
I don't know, really. Just
well, what do you think? What do you think about the Darren Fletcher appointment? Do you think that's the right one?
I'm not really too bothered. I'll be honest with you, because you don't know what decisions they're making at the top. In terms of they brought the manager in last year. He came new to the league, new to English football. All the staff were new to English football. Most of the players over the last few years were getting used to the Premier League. So what's happened the last few weeks? The way they've sacked him. Obviously, he didn't seem to have the players on side. But they had Burnley coming up. I think they'll probably beat Burnley if they're really at it. They have a cup game coming up. They have a City. So the timing wasn't great. He's obviously had a fallout with Wilcox. Do I think Fletch can do a good job for a few weeks, a few months? I'm sure he could.
He's talked about... Do you think the players were on side with Ruben Amorim, Roy?
No.
I always thought they actually liked him.
I don't know. I'm not saying they were offside with him, but I don't think they were fully... To me, they weren't putting the hard yards in week out.
Darren Fletcher's talked about returning to traditional Manchester United values and energy and a four at the back and calling to Alex Ferguson the first thing he did.
They played four at the back last night and they couldn't get the job done against Burnley.
Would you approve of that approach?
Does it matter? Does it really matter what I think? Because they went back to four last night. I heard Fletch talking before the game. He's talking about they've done the prep really well, and he's thanked 20 of his staff. Johnny Evans, every Tom, Dick and Harry, and the ex-United player. There's obviously a job waiting for any of them. But you want someone to come into that dressing room and get a grip of a dressing room with some really good players and people like Bruno, and get them on side and tell them to do the hard yards. I've said it before, and I'm repeating myself. Last night, typical example, United, not bad going forward, but they don't do the hard yards. So you've got to get a manager to get a group of players in to say this is the direction we're going. Do I think Fletcher's the man to do it? Absolutely not. He's obviously stepping in to do it for a few weeks and a few months, and he might win a few games if they go with Ollie, whatever. Good luck to whoever comes in. I wish him well. But they need to get a top manager in there to get a grip of that dressing room. And obviously part of management, as we know, is managing upwards. So whoever's making the decisions above the manager, which they will be, people like Wilcox, etc., that's part of your management skills. But listen, good luck to Fletch.
It feels like we're going around the block, because I asked you this question 7 years ago about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer going back in there potentially, but is that the right choice right now?
You could throw 20 names at me. I'd obviously say the same thing. Whoever goes in, you wish them well. Do I think it's the right or wrong answer? I don't know, but if it is to the end of the season, I think Ollie would do all right till the end of the season. Do I see Ollie as the manager for the next 4 or 5 years, getting United back competing? Then probably not.
Do you have a name?
Who'd I go with? I'd go with Eddie Howe.
Why?
I like him. No, I like what he's done. His management. He's managed a lot of games. When his teams are at it, they play good football. I know it's not for everyone. He'll have his critics. I like what he's done at Newcastle. Even at Bournemouth, he's managed 700-800 games. He's still a young man. I like his... I love his calmness. I think sometimes Man United maybe need a little bit of that. We've seen the previous manager going in. I like people with emotion. Obviously, I'm quite an emotional person. But I think his calmness, what he's done at Newcastle, Champions League a couple of times, winning a cup... I'd be happy to see him go in there.
I think it'd be difficult to get him, obviously, but I do think United need a man manager, someone who can get the best out of the players. I think that a lot of the time, you know, the manager will come in and want to change a lot of things, and in turn, you know, you probably do need a manager who's going to come in and look at the dressing room and go, these are the types of players we have. System-wise, you need to find the right manager for the system and the players you actually have. Do you want to go and buy 5 or 10 players again, or do you want to look at
you want someone to walk into a dressing room, and when the players are sitting there, as soon as he walks in, you go, here we go. We're going places. That's what you want. Personality. People talk about CVs and coaching and tactics and system. You want somebody to walk in that dressing room and get a grip of these players. I don't mean in an aggressive way, but just get that belief in the players. Go, this is the way we're going. We're going to start running hard. We're going to slip into down football. We're going to be attacking, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be hard to beat. We're going to do the hard yards. We're going to run properly. We see teams like Arsenal City over the last few years. The reason they're competing at the top is what they're doing out of possession. We've seen Arsenal again tonight. As poor as they've been, they kept a clean sheet. Bit of pride. United last night. The standard of the game, United and Burnley, was a joke. Absolute joke. Everyone after the game going, oh, it wasn't bad. Yeah, we done well. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. Absolute rubbish. But you mentioned it there, we're going on in circles. Who's going to go in? Any ex-United player's got a chance. I'm telling you.
Not any.
You don't fancy it, Roy? Gary?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. So you meant Ned?
Just to clarify, you haven't had a call.
No. I don't think I'll be getting one.
And you have to be able to manage the pundits as well as the Manchester United manager, not just the players. Is that right?
Honestly, to be fair, it's tiring, Dave. It is massively. Look, it's just tiring. As an ex-United player, people think, honestly, it's just tiring watching it. And I don't think we're asking for a lot, because a few weeks ago when I watched the games against Bournemouth, Newcastle, Villa, which actually one game of those was lost and one was drawn, so it's not exactly amazing. I was actually really happy that there was an excitement and a level of decent football, and it looked like there was a bit of a thrill back in the performances. But for so long, over 12 years, the football's been really poor.
Well, what happens in these job interviews? I'm intrigued why they keep giving certain people a job. What happens in the interview that they sit there and go, and then 12 months, 14 months later, they go, he's not the guy for us. Do you not suss that out when you speak to him? You look at somebody in the eye and go, and you see who's making the decision at Man United. You still have Ferguson and David Gill hanging on like a bad smell. Who's making the decisions? Ratcliffe? Wilcox? Who's coming into this interview process, and you're speaking to a manager? You've done it. You've interviewed managers. You must sit and get a feeling for somebody and go, he's the guy for us. Almost forget the CV. Yeah, you need something on your CV, of course, that you won a trophy or you've been manager a long time. But you got to look somebody in the eye and go, are you the man to get us places?
I think if you think about the appointments over the last 10, 12 years now, and look, we've flipped back and forward United from sort of people that the club know, people that basically sort of what will be fashionable in Europe, and young people who are a bit of, Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho. But if you think about it, Jose Mourinho really is the only appointment that fits the criteria of the club. He's managed in the Premier League, so there's an element of risk removed of the fact that he knows the league.
It doesn't have to be a criteria, does it?
I think it's a criteria. I think knowing the league, and so I'm not saying it's perfect, but if you said now, what's the risks? Someone coming to a new league, Arne Slot came on the league in the first season, so that can happen. And Jurgen Klopp came to Liverpool and did a great job. But my point is, if you want to remove the risks and try and sort of remove as many risks as possible, have they managed in the league before? Do they know the country? Do they know the game here? Have they managed in Europe and done well in Champions Leagues? Have they been successful and won titles? Have they done the things that Manchester United... Can they handle big pressure and big atmospheres of big clubs? If you put those 3 or 4, 5, 6 things and say, right, they've got to fit that criteria, then you're looking at the likes of Ancelotti and Tuchel, aren't you? Look at the types that they've been in England, they've won leagues, they've won Champions Leagues, they've been around the block, they've managed big players, they've managed personalities. They're not going to get a little bit scared if a pundit says something. If a pundit opens his mouth, they're not going to be worried about a pundit, are they? So my point is, if you think about those 5 or 6 things there that are the criteria of managing a huge football club, it only points towards 2 or 3 people left that you can actually go for. And that's where Manchester United, I feel, should go, remove the risks.
And what happens when somebody walks in your dressing room? We had it with managers at United, or new coaches come in, obviously with Kidd or Steve McLaren, and I'd work with different managers. What you want, the top players sit, and somebody walks in your dressing room who's doing a team talk or doing sessions, the top players looking at the coach and the manager to go, what have you got for us? That's what the top lads do.
Yeah.
What have you got for us?
Yeah.
And if they haven't got the answers, the players are going to eat you alive.
Do you know something, Roy, that you say that? I mean, I speak to players at League 2 level, and they want to know what the club's training facilities are, what the plans are, what the ambitions are, what the coaching system. The players really do want to know what the club is going to do for them and what the coach is going to do. Roy's absolutely right then. It would even get more demanding at what would be a Premier League level. You know, who are you going to sign? What we're going to... They're going to be looking at that and they want to be inspired. I get the fact that playing for United, there should be a level of self-motivation and sort of accountability and responsibility that they take. But they still need someone to inspire them, that gives them that enthusiasm and that environment to succeed.
But also, if some players are asking managers, that I had at Sunderland, also if players come in and going, who else are we signing? Going, don't worry about that. That's not your business. Do you want to come to the club, or do you want to roll your sleeves up and do a job for us? And you're right, everyone's going, don't worry about it. The top clubs will have all the best stuff. Yeah. Do you want to come here and roll your sleeves up and get United back competing at the top? If the answer is yeah, let's go for it. I had a bad player asking me at Sunderland, who else are you signing? I should have kicked him out the window. Who else are you signing? Don't worry about who else you're signing.
Anyway, missing Gerald Kwanzaa.
In the Sunday Telegraph, rather scathing piece on Victor Gyokeres. The headline is, Gyokeres is one of the worst strikers in the league. Here's the data to prove it. Arsenal are top of the Premier League and Champions League tables, but many supporters are growing increasingly concerned about the performances of star striker Victor Gyokeres, a £64 million signing. He pinpoints poor movement and unreliable touch, and it says it could be argued Gyokeres is occupying centre-backs, creating more space for other attackers, but the other strikers are now fit. So now Arteta will have a decision to make. Harsh or fair, this piece?
Well, to be fair to Sam, the piece is very fair and very measured. The headline is two-footed.
Yeah. And that's before you get the subtext, like unreliable touch, poor movement.
You only have to look at the goal return. There's an issue there. I've done a lot of Arsenal this season. I was there on Thursday night. And Thursday night, I think, was the most pronounced for me in that there were 3 times that the ball flashed across the box. I think particularly from a Timber header back was the one that really stands out to me. And Gyokeres was nowhere near it. It felt like he was 5 yards behind the play. We've seen a lot of, classic number 9s from Ian Wright to Gary Lineker talk about how if you're a striker in that sort of situation, you've actually got to gamble on your movement to put yourself in there. That is obviously an issue, especially given Gyokeres was signed as a more traditional number 9, not someone necessarily to kind of for his pressing game or for other elements. I think another issue with him, especially if we're comparing him to kind of classic number 9s in that way, is that there's maybe been some frustration with Arsenal when the ball goes up, it doesn't stick to him, and even you can sense, not so much on Thursday night, although it was a different sort of game, but when Gabriel Jesus came on in recent games, there's just a different energy about Arsenal. That it feels like he integrates into the team more. And look, some of it is down to the fact, I would say, that he's adapting to a higher level from the Portuguese league to the Premier League. It's a new country, but he is 27. One of the reasons he was signed, and this came out in some of the kind of discussion from within Arsenal in the summer, that it was to win now. But even that was interesting at the time, because in the build-up to this summer, which was kind of like the summer of number 9s, and it's interesting that a lot of them are actually struggling, which maybe says something about how number 9s are still developing in the modern game. But for pretty much 18 months, the word from Arsenal it was Sesko they were looking at. They'd done all the work on Sesko. That one of the reasons they were interested in Sesko as well is because, consistent with a lot of Arsenal's transfer recruitment, he was a player that could grow with the team, even if he wasn't a finished article. And now that did abruptly change in the summer, and I think there was even a surprise to other clubs that it was Gyokeres they went for and that Sesko was suddenly available.
Yeah, I think that's part of the switch to thinking win now. That's what this season's all about for Arsenal. all of the transfer business and the other stuff, it's this awareness of trying to win now, which is, you know, Gyokeres. But Gyokeres is seen, as you say, as a guy that's going to win for you now, that's going to score your goals. His struggles haven't surprised me. I wrote about this in the summer, that the track record of those coming from Portuguese football goal scorers is pretty poor. Ricky van Wolfswinkel, 25 goals for Sporting Lisbon, I think 1 goal for Norwich, for example. Mario Jardel, you can go back. Brighton don't often get it wrong, and obviously they had Gyokeres and let him go. He's not one of the worst strikers in the league, though, because he's useful. You know, he's just doesn't look like a top club striker. But that Sam hasn't written he's one of the worst strikers in the league, as you say. Yeah. He's just blah, isn't he?
Jackie, picking up on the points that Miguel made there.
He wants to be blah.
About Gyokeres.
Yeah.
Higher level, new league, first time he's going to be playing at that level. All of those issues have been pointed towards Benjamin Sesko as well. And we're seeing signs now that Benjamin Sesko might just be coming up to speed. Is that something that Arsenal could look at and think, just give Gyokeres a bit of time? Because if you are top of the Premier League and top of the Champions League group into the last 4 of the Carabao Cup as well, with a striker who has been a regular, surely you can't carry somebody up front for the entire season, can you?
Yeah, I don't think they're carrying him as such, and it's a good piece by Sam, and you know, he watches Gyokeres very, very closely on a very regular basis. And I thought the key line in there, my Stato head on, was the fact that he didn't score a single header in scoring his all his goals last season. 68 and 66 in the league for Sporting is incredible. So you can see why they brought him in. But I think the key thing here, bigger picture-wise, is the fact that everyone at Arsenal is terrified, right? Not terrible. No, they're not terrible. They're terrified of blowing it. They are absolutely... You could see that against Liverpool. And when those fabulous balls were played into the box, I screamed at my kids, like, Gary Lineker, Michael Owen would be absolutely attacking that space. There was no excuse. And I don't even care what level, even non-league.
Andy Gray, Jackie, there you go.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Absolutely, but you don't even have to be the most technically proficient footballer, surely, to know you have to attack that space. When you've got quality deliveries from the likes of Timber, and they've got quality players all over the field to deliver those balls in, that's what really concerned me more than anything else. But I think the reason his name's coming up so much, yes, the stats are really poor, but it's because they are terrified of blowing it now at this stage, when this is obviously the best chance since the Invincibles.
At any level, and obviously I'm a part owner in a football club, it was to poor reflection upon everybody. It means it's not worked. It means the decision making all the way through has not been successful. Means the manager hasn't won enough football matches, and that ultimately everybody loses. Particularly when you're sacking a manager part way through a season, it's very difficult to get an adequate replacement in. Manchester United have been here before. And they're in a challenging position again. But I am surprised that it's happened this morning. I'm not surprised that it's happened. I think that I didn't realise it would happen so quickly. I think the last week or so, some of the press conferences that we've seen, it usually only ends one way. But I did think that they would get through another couple of weeks, try and work out what to do. But obviously it's become that challenging internally that they decided to do it very quickly, which was a shock this morning at 10 o'clock when I heard the news.
Yeah, just on the timeline, I mean, the acceleration of this decision seems to stem from this meeting that we talk about on Friday between Jason Wilcox and Amorim. Now, we've been told that United's bosses felt that his response at that meeting was very negative and emotional, and then we saw the post-match comments at Leeds. Do you feel like his position had simply become untenable?
Look, if there was a meeting on Friday morning about the performance against Wolves, between the sporting director and the manager, I'd have to been disappointed if there wasn't a meeting after the Wolves performance. I think as a sporting director of a football club or an owner of a football club, you should be entitled to go and speak to a manager when the team have played like they have against Wolves, and basically Wolves have picked up a point at Old Trafford, only the third of the season. It seems to me that in the last week, Ruben Amorim has decided that he basically doesn't feel supported, or he doesn't feel happy. He's called it on. He's obviously in press conferences decided to unleash at times and sort of be emotional and do what he does, which I think has always been honest. He's always done it with integrity. You always felt he was speaking from the heart. We always enjoyed his press conferences. But the reality of it is, when you turn on your bosses, doesn't matter whether you're at a football club or you work in Morrison's, if you turn on your bosses, you're not going to keep your job very long. So for me, the meeting between sort of Jason Wilcox and Ruben Amorim that took place after the Wolves game, that absolutely would take place in every single football club. You know, if Salford City had a game that they lost or drew that was bad, there would be a conversation between the sporting department and the manager, just like there would be from the manager to the sporting department if we weren't getting our targets in the January transfer window. These are conversations that have to happen. There has to be a level of honesty that occurs when there are disappointing performances coming. And look, over the last 5 or 6 weeks, I've done probably every United game apart from the Leeds game and the Crystal Palace one away. And I've actually complimented United when I think they've looked like they've performed well against Bournemouth, when they drew 4-4, when they lost at Villa, which was a disappointing result, but I thought there was something in the performance. But some of the performances in the last month, if you look at the Everton game, losing to 10 men when, to be fair, Ruben Amorim kept 3 at the back against 1, whilst they were basically trying to chase a goal against 10 men Everton. The performance against West Ham, everyone's beating West Ham. Manchester United drew with West Ham at home, and to be fair, West Ham could have got more out of the game. Everyone's beating Wolves. Manchester United drew against Wolves. So if you look at some of the performances in the last month, they've really been shocking. However, there have been some bright spots along the way. I actually thought against Leeds, I thought it was a decent performance. I thought it was a good point, and I thought that he could have handled it differently after the game in the press conference, but he didn't. But this Wolves game seems to me be like the killer game. It was a bad one, that.
Now look, you touched on this, Gary, but his reluctance to move away from 3 at the back seems to have also been a factor. Was this a failure on his part to adapt, or actually is the reality of it the quality and quantity of players at his disposal?
Look, to be fair to Ruben Amorim, I think when he was offered the job, he said, no, I'd prefer to take it in the summer when you can adapt to my system and you can recruit towards it. He did say that, but then I think Manchester United said sort of like it's now or never. And the allure of Manchester United and being the manager is something that's difficult to turn down, but he did call this out on the way in. I actually thought that Manchester United would adapt a lot better to the 3 than they did do. I'm really stunned that over the period of the sort of time that Ruben Amorim has been at the club, that they've continued to play so poorly in that system. Now, I get it, it's a difficult system. Wing backs are challenging. It's not a role that basically young full-backs growing up, they don't play wing backs growing up anymore in Europe. Similarly, those 2 positions that are in behind the centre forward, they're difficult positions because you have to be in the pockets and then you have to run through and then you have to be out to defend sometimes and chase back with the full-back of the opposition team. So there are some quite specialist positions within the system that Ruben Amorim plays, the centre-backs obviously as well. But I can't believe how badly they have adapted to it and how inconsistent they've been with it. That's a failing upon the manager. It's a failing upon the coach. It's a failing upon the manager. It's a failing upon the players, and it's a failing upon the club in terms of not recruiting properly for it. However, you know, thinking about this morning, travelling down to London at 10 o'clock, and I was thinking about what managers have been appointed at the club over the last 10, 12 years. Louis van Gaal had his own philosophy. Jose Mourinho plays a certain style of football. So does David Moyes. Erik ten Hag, again, a very different style of football, very positional, different to what Manchester United ordinarily would play. Ruben Amorim, a very different style of football than Manchester United would ordinarily expect. I think the experiments have got to stop. Manchester United, and I'm not being Manchester United, look at us, this is what we do, but there is a very good video, I think you can get it online, it's one that's been floating around for about 15 years, that Bobby Charlton talks about what Manchester United is as a football club. And I've always been very proud of what that club is. Adventurous, exciting football, playing young players, entertaining the crowd, those fans that pay to come in, that are basically looking for some relief from their job at a weekend and want their entertaining Saturday. Manchester United must take risks and be courageous and play with attacking, aggressive football. There was a brilliant video from Bobby Charlton describing that. Manchester United have got to appoint a manager that fits the DNA of their football club. Ajax will never change for anybody. Barcelona will never change for anybody. I don't believe Manchester United should change for anybody. They should play the way in which they play. And these managers that have come in are fantastic managers. Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Eric Ten Hag, Ruben Amorim, they're brilliant coaches. You can't say they're not good coaches, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but they've all come in with different ideas, different styles of play, different philosophies, and none of them really fit the Manchester United way. So for me, the club have to find a manager now who's got experience, who's willing to play fast, entertaining, attacking, aggressive football. Simple as that.
Who is that, though, Gary? Because, look, Darren Fletcher coming in, interim charge, he knows what success is at the club, and this is a sensible decision for now. But what about long term? And what about until the end of the season? Is it best for Darren Fletcher to see it out until then?
I don't know. I don't know, genuinely. I could sit here and say that Darren Fletcher will be great to the end of the season. They could go and get beat by Burnley on Wednesday night. I could sit here and say Darren Fletcher's not the right man and they could go and be the most free they've ever been in their lives and beat Burnley 5-0. I think we really have to see how it adapts in the next few days. I do think Darren will need, Fletcher will need someone in alongside him with experience if he's going to take it to the end of the season. For me, it feels like Manchester United before appointed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and sort of a short-term contract and it went really well. There was a big boost at the club. They then appointed Ralph Rangnick on a short-term contract and it was an absolute disaster. So we've experienced both things. If they can get the right man out of the club that fits the sort of criteria that I mentioned before, they should try and appoint someone full-time. If they can't, they're going to have to try and find some form of experienced interim that'll do the job for the next 5 or 6 months.
Who do you think, though, Gary, the person you described, who is that for you? Who's going to work as the next head coach in this club's setup?
I'll be honest, I think it would be wrong of me to name it. There are coaches that I like. I like Tuchel. I like Simeone at Atletico Madrid. I like Valverde. I think Valverde's a fantastic coach. But are there really opportunities for Manchester United to go and get these coaches? I don't know. I have no idea. But the most important thing is that Manchester United scouting department, recruitment department, sporting director have got their eyes open and basically have been seeing this coming over the last few months and have basically got an idea of what they need to do next and that they're going to come up with that quite quickly. It's been a real struggle for the last 10 or 12 years for all these good managers and coaches that have come to Old Trafford to try and get the results that the club demand. And we can't keep getting it wrong. We've got to get it right at some point.
Do you think, Gary, that the title manager is now redundant in the Premier League? And in terms of Amorim, you touched on this about his press conferences. It's been 14 months of sound bites. Do you think he gave his opinion a bit too much? Was he too honest?
No, I'm not going to say that because I think a manager who comes into a press conference, look, I think if he was probably being guided by PR specialists and communication specialists, they'd say that he's too emotional. He speaks too much and he gives to the media far too much. But we're in the media. We get bored to death every single week by people not giving us good lines in interviews. So why should we? I don't think we should be the ones that complain when a manager comes in and gives his all. And to be fair, he's honest and authentic and wears his heart on his sleeve. It wouldn't be perfect PR and comms sort of strategy. But on the other hand, for us in the media, I think we have to welcome it. Look, I don't think it's been sound bites from Ruben Amorim. I think he's meant every single word that he said. I think that is a real, genuine, honest guy. I don't think he's someone who's playing the game like you see some managers do when they come and do interviews and you feel like they're sort of coming out with cliches. That guy never came out with cliches. He was absolutely all in every time he did an interview. I thought he was fantastic at times and would have wanted him to really see him succeed. But what I will say is, if the performances are that poor and the results are so poor, it doesn't matter how likeable you are, how honest you are, how much integrity you've got, you're going to get sacked at a club like Manchester United.
What about the players, Gary? Bruno Fernandes, we've seen he's turned down opportunities to leave the club. Is there any danger that he may have a change of heart now?
That's not a factor into. I don't care about that today. I think Bruno Fernandes has been sensational for Manchester United. He's under contract. He's always given his all, similar to Ruben Amorim has. I think he's someone who's performed brilliantly over 5, 6, 7 years at the club. So I think he's the least of Manchester United's concerns. I think the major concerns for United is to try and get De Ligt and Maguire back as quickly as possible. I'm not quite sure what's happened to them. To get Mainu back fit, to get the lads back from AFCON, obviously when they're knocked out of the ton or they win it, and try and get as many good players out on that pitch as possible. Because I do think this league this year is below average. I do think this Manchester United team are still in a position whereby they can get into the Champions League. They need an experienced coach who knows how to get them over the line. And Manchester United do need to return to a back four with wide players who can go and basically attack with that. I'm surprised the back three didn't work. I was actually quite excited by seeing it come into play because I didn't think we had a great back four. But having watched us play a back four the other week in one of the home games, I can't remember which one it was now. There's been that many over Christmas, but they were really good when they played it. When Dorgu played on the right wing and it was Dallow and Shaw at left back and right back, I just felt it looked like it belonged again. And I think that ultimately now they need to go back to that. They pretty much will, I think. I can't believe Darren Fletcher is going to go with a back three at Burnley on Wednesday night. He's going to go with a back four with probably 2 midfield players and a number 10, a striker and 2 wide players.
Just finally, Gary, do you think that this decision could help or hinder United getting Champions League football?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. I'd like to think it would help because I think that I think Ruben Amorim showed when he tweaked the system in the last couple of weeks that actually there was an exciting group of players there that could actually go and do things. You know, I enjoyed the performances against Villa, Newcastle and Bournemouth because I saw things that, demonstrated some sort of attacking energy and risk and courage. And it was exciting for the fans. So if that can happen, I think that basically we get back to a system that I think players maybe are more used to. It could help them. But I've seen the Ralph Rangnick 5-6 months, which I'm not saying it's Ralph Rangnick's fault. It wasn't. He's a great coach. But that went horribly wrong. So let's not sit here and think that everything's going to get better straight away. We've seen it go wrong before.
The FA Cup, I think the players see the reaction at the end and, deservedly so. So we're disappointed with the result and probably disappointed with some moments in the game, especially responding to Brighton's first goal. I think we took too long to respond from that. So players are down, disappointed, hurt, but they're going to have to pick themselves up and recover because we've got a big game next week.
We saw Omar and Jason here again today. Have you had any conversations after that? And if not, just wondered whoever comes in, whether that's yourself or someone else, how big of a task is it to lift these players afterwards?
Well, first of all, I've not had conversations. Just finished the game, doing media, speaking to the players, speaking to the staff. Any time you come in at Manchester United, it's a massive job. The thing for me is there's still a lot to play for this season. And if I look at the players and we get players back from injury and an AFCON and we get a fuller squad, I think these players have got the ability to qualify in a Champions League place, and that should be their objective, that should be their mindset. But they're going to have to come together and be part of that as well. It's not about a manager, it's not about directors, it's about everyone. And the players have to group together, take responsibility, find a way of, improving quickly and taking on the challenge for the rest of the season. Don't waste the season.
Sam? Darren, how would you describe Manchester United at the moment? Because from an outside perspective, club's not winning games, obviously. Ruben's gone. We don't know who's going to take the team against Manchester City. It looks like a bit of a mess.
Well, it's not in a great moment, yeah, let's be honest, but out of the cups early. But as I said, there's still a Champions League place to fight for, and I still think that can be achieved this season. It's probably not what fans want to hear about Manchester United because you'll be winning cups and challenging for the Premier League. But probably the objective this season, with the quality we've got and the league positions and how tight it is, they've still got a lot of league games left that they can achieve that. So that's where all their focus and energy is going into, improving as a team, improving quickly, and don't waste the season. And I think that would be the challenge that I would set. That's the challenge that probably the players feel like they need to achieve this year. And anything other than that is just noise, really. That's what all their energy and focus has got to go into.
James and then Rob.
Darren, obviously this club is ordinarily used to playing a lot of games. I mean, now we've gone out the 2 cup competitions to the first total. Mostly plays 40. You have to go back to the 1914-15 season to the last time in a full season the club played fewer. I think it's 82 the last time they went out at this stage so early in 2 domestic cup competitions. Does that sort of show where things are at the moment?
That is where we're at. Yeah, we can't hide behind that. We've got to face that, and we've got to deal with that. And it's not Manchester United level or what's expected of Manchester United, but ultimately have to do something about that. And still, not success, but take a step forward by qualifying for a champion. I keep repeating that, it sounds like a broken record, but there's still a lot to play for in the league this season, and Champions League places are important for a number of reasons that I don't need to go into, that you guys know. And for the players it's important, and for attracting players it's important. So on all levels, and for them to feel like this season has achieved an objective of some sorts. But I keep saying it, the players have got to step up as well. They need to come together, and they will, and I would challenge them to do that. They've got enough leaders and experience and quality to do it. Learn how to deal with setbacks of conceding goals, try and build confidence. By doing that, you're going to have to grind out ways to win. It's not always a pretty way, especially when you're low on confidence or you're conceding goals. Sometimes you have to roll your sleeves up, work hard, come together as a team, grind it out, and then from there you can build performances and momentum and confidence and results.
You spoke about the players there. I mean, you were part of the team where if they went out of both cup competitions so early, it would have been the end of the world. And you just spoken to the players. Do you think that this group understand that responsibility in that situation, and that the mentality that you had as a player in that group that you were with as a player, they have something similar?
Well, they understand it. They understand the club. They understand the expectations. I keep saying I was lucky to play with the players that I played with in the dressing room that I had, and I learned from the older players, and then it became a cycle. You know, we weren't aware of that when we were young. We were aware, we thought we knew, we didn't, and the older players and the experienced players and the ones who'd been there before and did it, they educated us, they moulded us. Sir Alex moulded us, and that was a cycle that was created, but that takes time to create. But again, there's experienced players in that dressing room who need to come together, who need to carry the team, who need to challenge the team, who need to make the new players, or the ones that maybe don't understand it, they're going to have to challenge them and pull them along with them. They're going to have to drag them, and I hope that they do.
Yeah, last two, there's Samuel and then Simon.
I think it was 4 years ago, you were on the backroom staff when the season ended quite early with the Atletico defeat, and then it really did spiral. We'd come on, that squad was quite toxic. Do you think this squad is in a better place to actually achieve that objective, qualify for Champions League?
Yes, I do. I think they are. I think in terms of that was a very strange season. I think there was, and listen, I don't want to throw names, there were a lot of players out of contract, and there was a lot of different dynamics, and it was difficult when we qualified, when we went out in the Champions League. There was a massive drop-off, you could see that. That was visible for everyone to see. But that also let us know the true characters of the players. So actually, for a disappointing season, although the end of the season looked terrible, true character reveals itself in difficult times. So we learned a lot about a lot of the players in that situation. So that'll be the same about these lads now. You know, difficult times, true character is going to show. So they have to dig in, show they want to be part of Manchester United's future, learn from this. And ultimately, if you're not, then I don't think you should be here or will be here. Sounds strong, but that's just the reality and the way it should be.
Darren, just wanted to, do you have any idea of the times? Because obviously there is a really big game coming up next weekend, and there does need to be some kind of structure in place.
I have to report tomorrow morning to Carrington. That's all I know. So I'll find out whatever I need to find out tomorrow morning. So I'll go home.
Any indication as to which one?
I've had zero indication, and because all my energy and focus and concentrations had to be on these two games in such a quick turnaround, and preparing the team, a 3-game week, you know, everything that I said. So, and I genuinely mean that. It's a massive responsibility to lead this club, and I've give it my best, and ultimately I'm disappointed to not be able to win a game or to get a result today. But I feel like there were some good things in there. We created a lot of chances, shots, things like that. But ultimately it wasn't enough. So I am more disappointed than anybody, really, because I care for the club, and I want the club to do well, and I want the players to do well. And I genuinely mean it's not about me. I've had my time as a player. It's in the bank now, it's done. Loved every minute of it, was very lucky. It's all about them. But we need to help them, the club need to help them, and they need to help themselves.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Sir Alex Ferguson is heavily involved in all the processes at United. I think you're hearing different, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess my take would be United have 99 problems and Fergie ain't one. Bit corny. No, just, well, yeah, 999. Look, the long and the short of it is he's seen on television when the camera pans to the stands, but the days of him being closely involved are gone. He's not even paid by the club anymore. He's there because, as Sam writes in the piece, he's an 84-year-old man who's following a football club that he loves. And in that time since retiring, I don't think he's barely made a pronouncement about the state of the first team, what kind of job the manager's doing. There's an interesting piece by Paul Hayward, who knows Ferguson very well. He wrote his autobiography, one of his autobiographies. Points out that Fergie's union background means that he was very conscious of not being seen like Matt Busby was seen, as interfering with managers. His presence is there as a symbol of what United used to be, and that's the issue, not his actual involvement. But Roy Keane knows how to put a tackle in, doesn't he? And that comment was classic Roy. Obviously, their animus goes back to Roy leaving the club in 2005, and perhaps opinions that I don't think Roy's ever going to budge from. But this isn't about Matt Busby's situation. For one thing, the Busby situation was he was a sort of intimidating presence to sort of novice managers or kind of managers that were seen as not big characters. But United have had some of the biggest characters in the dugout. They've had Mourinho, they've had Van Gaal, they've had strong character like Amorim himself, pretty stubborn guy. The thought that Fergie is there kind of influencing them or intimidating them is just one of Roy's TV moments, but I don't think reality.
Miguel, Johnny mentioned Paul Hayward's piece there. In The Observer, it says, one call to Sir Alex exposed the deep malaise at the heart of Manchester United. And talking about that call that Fletcher made, he says, when Fletcher tapped Ferguson's number on his phone screen, the call travelled across all the waste of the last 13 years to the genius behind 13 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups and 2 Champions Leagues. It resurrected the principle that Ferguson might have something useful to say about what should happen next. And he did, by articulating something the Glazers and parts of the Ineos ownership don't understand. The job now, is what he said to Darren Fletcher, is to do what's best for Manchester United. What Manchester United are doing at the moment is bringing in an interim in Darren Fletcher, talking about bringing another interim after Darren Fletcher before appointing a permanent manager in the summer. Is that what is best for Manchester United?
Yeah, definitely. Also, it gives them the kind of space to actually think about this clearly, which I think really is required. I mean, I think one of the biggest issues of modern Manchester United, and this feeds into a lot of themes of the show today, I think they've got to decide what they actually want to look like as a club. And I mean, like in terms of, especially with one so obsessed with identity, it doesn't really have a football identity. And if you pick one, and this is essential in modern football, then everything flows from that. And that was one of the issues with the Amorim appointment, that really in the summer of 2024, and there is context for this because the new leadership was coming in, key figures weren't in place, but in the summer of 2024 they really should have taken it almost as starting from scratch and thinking about what do we want this team to look out. Instead they ended up, I suppose, clumsily persisting with Ten Hag for some justifiable reasons, and then going for Amorim, who's probably more wedded to a specific style than any modern coach, which kind of goes against that sort of best practice that we're talking about. And just like Sam touches on this in the piece there, or at least kind of, I think this is a bit of what he's getting at. I think where the Ferguson thing is significant, I suppose, it's not about his influence, because I mean, I think compared to Busby, as Jonathan was saying, Busby was this kind of, this almost ferocious presence there, even if it was kind of implicit. Whereas Ferguson by contract, it almost feels like he's kind of a cuddlier figure in retirement than he...
Busby had the office in the stadium. The manager could literally know that Samat's sitting two or three doors down.
And just on the kind of, I suppose, where the phone call is significant is because, as a colleague said to me during the week, I won't out him, but he said, what would have happened if Ferguson said no?
Not for you, Darren.
Which kind of shows a little bit the absurdity of this, and it's like United are now in a position, and this is where there are echoes of kind of the 17 years between Busby, where they're looking for the next Messiah. Or the next, and there's almost biblical themes to it.
Jackie, just on that, look, it looks like it's going to be either Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or Michael Carrick. There are two things at play here, aren't there? Who's the better coach and who's going to help Manchester United in that short term until the end of the season, but also from an optics perspective. And are they the same thing? Who would be the right choice at this stage?
Well, they tried Ole Gunnar Solskjaer more significantly of course, than Carrick. So I would absolutely say Carrick out the two. It's weird, isn't it? Because Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson's not the problem here. He's the figurehead. He's the guy that brought so much success, that has helped create and amplify the fan base that was already there. It was already a huge club, of course, before him. But what he did was extraordinary. Him sitting in the stands is not the problem. The problem is that it's been an absolute shambles ever since he left, with lurching from one style to another, to a different manager to another, and just going with no kind of serious clue as to what to do next. And it all comes from the top, doesn't it? And it wasn't just that Sir Alex Ferguson left, it was that David Gill left, and the way of doing things was exposed in their absence. And the fact that the first signings under David Moyes, the key ones, the likes of Fellaini from Everton and Juan Mata from Chelsea on a free, kind of low-hanging fruit, they really struggled to really kick off the whole process with a new identity from then, and they've not gone back to that. So in terms of the two managers, I would absolutely say Carrick, give him a go, because I don't see why you'd go back to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But on the Sir Alex Ferguson, sorry, quite disrespectful, front, listening to Peter Schmeichel, legendary goalkeeper, the other day, who's saying that no, Sir Alex isn't involved at all. He speaks to him a lot, and he said he's not, he's just there in the stands, but he's not having a say at all in what's going on. And why shouldn't Darren Fletcher pick up the phone to him? It's getting ridiculous now. You can pick up the phone to whoever he likes. You're not going to not pick up the phone to somebody who's been there and seen and done it all.
It is all over at Old Trafford, and the 13-time winners, Manchester United, have been knocked out at home by Brighton. Not a great result for Darren Fletcher, his second game as the interim head coach. There was a bit of hope for United with that late Benjamin Šeško goal with 5 minutes to go, but then Shea Lacey was sent off 4 minutes later for a second bookable offence for throwing the ball down into the ground, and that just took the wind out of United's sails. Great result for Brighton, though not on a great run of form. They only won 1 of their previous 8 in all competitions, and United have been the side that have knocked them out of the FA Cup the most. They've knocked them out 6 times of the competition. But a goal from Brian Gruder in the first half, and then Danny Welbeck, who loves playing against his old side, with a brilliant left-footed finish, smashed past Senna Lamans in the second half to make it 2-0, and that second goal proved to be decisive. 6 changes as well Fabian Hürzeler made from the last Premier League game as well. So that'll be particularly satisfying. United go out in the third round for the first time since 2014. That is a big, big result for Brighton, but more problems for Manchester United. Out of the Carabao Cup, out of the FA Cup. They're not in Europe. It is now all on the Premier League.
Picking up silverware were all but ended with defeat to Brighton in the FA Cup, and talks are set to accelerate over the next 24 to 48 hours over hiring either Michael Carrick or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as interim head coach until the end of the season.
I've had zero indication, and because all my energy and focus and concentrations had to be on these two games in such a quick turnaround and preparing the team, a 3-game week, everything that I said. So, and I genuinely mean that. It's a massive responsibility to lead this club, and I've given it my best. It's not about a manager, it's not about directors, it's about everyone, and the players have to group together, take responsibility, find a way of, improving quickly and taking on the challenge for the rest of the season. Don't waste the season.
OK, well, we have a football correspondent, Rob Dorset, joining us now. Very good morning to you, Rob. Look, could we see an appointment before the weekend? How likely is that?
I think it's very likely. And in fact, I think the next 24 to 36 hours, I think, will shape the interim head coach position at Manchester United. I think by the end of play on Tuesday, I think we will know who Manchester United's head coach is for the remainder of the season. As I've had it explained to me, United's bosses are accelerating the process right now. I think that they wanted to get the FA Cup tie against Brighton out of the way. They didn't want distractions from that. And Director of Football Jason Wilcox, who is leading the search for the interim manager, was helping Darren Fletcher a lot. And I don't think the club wanted any distractions from that match yesterday. Now that that game has been and gone, and United know they've only got the Premier League to focus on, remember, I think that the entire focus at the club now is on appointing an interim manager, and it is a straight choice between Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Both men have now met with Manchester United's hierarchy. They've done that over the last few days, but I'm told that further discussions are planned with Michael Carrick in particular today. I haven't been told whether there are any talks due with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Read into that what you will. Nobody is telling us anything specific on that at the moment. But what I do know is that that man in your picture, Michael Carrick, very much impressed Jason Wilcox and the other Manchester United bosses with his plans and the pitch that he made for the job until the end of the season. Although, of course, there is an awareness as well of just how popular Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is with supporters, and they know him very, very well from the job that he did in his previous stint as interim head coach. So Carrick definitely having more talks today. Solskjaer we're not so sure of, but I'd expect Manchester United to make a decision between those two in the next 24 to 36 hours.
And look, what does it mean for now? Darren Fletcher, could he continue as part of a setup? You're kind of wondering how he's feeling and what he's been told as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are the discussions that are still ongoing and the things that Manchester United's bosses are still assessing. I think now that that game has finished, they'll fully take stock of Darren Fletcher's role. And it isn't clear yet whether he will have a role to play in the coaching setup under the new interim head coach. It is possible, of course, that he goes back to his substantive job, which is as Manchester United's under-18s head coach. He's the only one of the three that we're talking about here who's already employed by Manchester United in a full-time role. So Fletcher said to us after the game yesterday that his plan is to go into Carrington's training ground first thing this morning and talk to his bosses and find out what they want for him next. I think for all of these people, it feels like an awful lot is up in the air at the moment. But from Manchester United's perspective, I think a lot will be answered in the next 24 to 36 hours.
Extraordinary game earlier today in the 12:15 kickoff, the biggest of upsets we've surely ever seen in the history of the competition. Macclesfield, National League North, sitting in 14th, 117 places below the visitors, who were nothing less than the holders of the FA Cup, Crystal Palace. And it was Macclesfield in that 12:15 kickoff who won by 2-1, as you'd expect at the end. Absolutely extraordinary scenes for John Rooney and his Macclesfield side, producing the biggest giant killing in FA Cup history. Let's hear from some of the players now, including the captain and opening scorer of Macclesfield's first goal, Paul Dawson.
Fitness-wise, we're part-time. We train twice a week. They're a full-time side, and we have full-time sides in our league, and you can tell the difference. But I think an occasion like that, especially the fans behind us, they were so loud today, so that bit extra pushed us on, and I think we defended really well. I think the lads breaking forward are fantastic, and just all round, it's just a brilliant performance.
And was it you ahead of the goal? Was it you twiddling with his bandage? Was it you? Who was the player?
Yeah, so I'll take the assist for that.
Yeah.
Come on then. A bit of his thing ripped off, and then he started shouting at me because I was taking too long, and then he scored. So we'll take that all day.
Yeah. Are you taking the assist?
Yeah,
you can have the goal as well if you want.
I'll take that. I'll tell all the kids at school it was me.
It was a great ball from Duss, wasn't it?
Great ball.
And what have you done? Push me into it. I've just fell into it, I think.
We'll take it, lad.
Who do you fancy in the next round?
I'm a Man United fan personally.
Well, we beat the holders, so we can beat anyone, can we? Anyone. United away, Liverpool away, City away, any of them.
Still doesn't feel real, but no, listen, to go and perform the way we did. I always spoke before the game about a little bit of hope in the FA Cup, but did they really believe it? Probably not. But when we went 1-0 up, you're thinking, can we get to half-time 1-0 up? And the messages to them at half-time was just managing the game. Can we slow the game down? Can we take the sting out of it when we can? And I thought they carried their messages out. Unbelievable. But I thought, it's mad to say, but I thought we were the deserved winners on the day. I thought we were incredible. I thought from every single one of the subs who come on, the starting 11, I thought he was outstanding.
I mean, has the history of the achievement kind of weighed down yet? You know, something that hasn't been done since 1871 for a sixth team to be a top flight team, and as you mentioned there, the way the team were able to do it was so impressive.
Yeah, it was. Listen, me and the staff, we can only give them a certain amount of detail and how we want to play, but it's them lads who go over that white line and they've got to put that performance in, and you know, we couldn't be any prouder of them. But to look back to see when a bigger upset as this, as you're saying there, I didn't know when it was that you've just mentioned, is something, you know, I'm really proud of on a personal note, but proud of the players as well. What they've created here is something unbelievable.
I think everything how I try to explain the performance or find some excuses would be completely wrong. I have no words for this performance today, and it's not just losing, it's, you know, almost creating no chances in the attack. This was really hard to watch. Nobody who could dribble past one. No physical presence. Not being in the dangerous areas. No kind of quality today in our attack. This is what makes it so disappointing, because, yeah, as you mentioned, in cup things can happen, but today, if you play like this, then things have to happen, and so that's why this makes it really, really hard.
Just an extraordinary day for Macclesfield. This really was David versus Goliath. And in terms of giant killings that we've seen down the years in the FA Cup, you think back to all those years ago, Sutton United against Coventry City. That, in terms of giant killings, is the biggest of all, because it was the holders in town, Clinton.
Yeah, definitely. That Palace are the holders. I think it'd be bigger if they beat someone like a Man City or a Liverpool, but because it's the holders, it is giant killing from where they are in the National League North. I think it's a fantastic achievement. And you know what? The manager spoke there, Rooney. They fully deserved it. You know, when sometimes you think the lower league teams, it's a smash and grab, they've had to defend.
Scrappy one, yeah.
Scrappy 1-0. There wasn't a scrappy 1-0.
It was silky from the Silkman, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were very silky. I like that. Not bad from you, Si. Very good, that. But, yeah, they thoroughly deserved it. And I think Oliver Glasner summed that up perfectly. They got what they deserved. They didn't deserve anything, Palace. They were nowhere near it. There was no fight. They didn't create anything. But that was down to Macclesfield, sorry. I thought they were fantastic. And, yeah, Rooney should be proud of his team, and so should the players as well, and the fans, because I thought they were fantastic and made it a great atmosphere as well.
And also such an emotionally charged occasion as well, because it's only weeks ago that their striker, Ethan McLeod, tragically lost his life in that car accident. He's actually coming back from the game against Bedford as well. And they felt, from what I could see and just bits and bobs we were hearing, it was very emotionally high-charged as well. And I'd imagine so many of the team have dedicated that win to him. Just an awful, awful situation. But for a club who've been through the ringer in recent weeks, what a moment.
Yeah, it's a great moment. And obviously that was a very sad occasion. As I say, we send thoughts and prayers out to Ethan and to his family as well, because obviously it's devastating news. But yeah, a performance today, he definitely would be looking down over his team from above and thinking what a performance that was, because that was first class. I think his family were there at the end, so that was special when they went into the change room as well. But yeah, what a moment for Macclesfield, and thoroughly deserved it. Brilliant performance. As I said, they were the better team. They were on the front foot. They caused a lot of problems. And as I said it many times, when you get these lower league teams knocking out big Premier League teams, sometimes it's a smash and grab. Not this. This was a really positive performance. I thought it was fantastic. To a man, as Rooney said, and his substitutions. Everyone knew their job, and they'd done their job brilliantly. Everyone can talk about how bad Palace were. Macclesfield made Palace look bad. They made them look bad. So you've got to give the full credit to Macclesfield. I thought they were outstanding. And go and enjoy it. And as they said, I hope they do get someone like a Man City away, because it'd be good money for the club. It would be brilliant money for that football club. And, yeah, they thoroughly deserve it. And some of those players will never get the opportunity to probably play at them big grounds like the Etihad. I think it'll be fantastic. So I hope they get a good draw in the next round, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, everybody, you can understand in the town, the local area, has been talking about it on social media. I mean, the Macclesfield Town Council just summed it up with simply amazing work, fellas.
It was amazing. That's all I can say.
That was them summing up the situation.
Well done, and you thoroughly deserve it.
Well done, fellas.
Well
I
done,
think it's
fellas.
a bit more than that. It's magnificent Macclesfield.
Yeah.
Very quick word on your old side, Crystal Palace, because the headlines, rightly so, need to be all about Macclesfield. But there will be talk about Crystal Palace, because they're now winless in their last 9. They've gone to a side 117 places below them, and they didn't even deserve to get something out of this game. So with Sunderland to come next, where does this leave Palace this season?
No, yeah, it's difficult. You need the likes of Muñez, Ismail Sarr. They got Kamada out. They need to spend and bring in more players. They didn't have Mateta because he couldn't play on that surface today. But that's no excuses, because the team that he picked, still, no disrespect to Macclesfield, still should be beating Macclesfield on any given day. So nowhere near good enough from Crystal Palace. And I always praise them, and I think they've had an outstanding season. I think Glasner's a brilliant manager, but the players, yeah, they were poor today. But yeah, it leaves them. They got a good draw against Aston Villa. Need to concentrate on the Europa Conference League as well, but they need players in. They need the players back from injury. Palace need to have their best 11 players when they're fit and firing, and they need reinforcements. They're already bringing Brennan Johnson. They need other players. He needs more help, Oliver Glasner.
How as a player, how as a head coach do you deal with a moment like this? Because this will dominate the headlines for days to come, because it's such an upset. But Crystal Palace, the holders, are the ones on the wrong end of it.
Yeah, but this is where you get paid the big money, and this is why the clubs are looking at you, Oliver Glasner, because we're talking about when you're doing well. Now when you've had a bad result, how do you get the players, not back on side, but how do you turn it around and get a positive result against the next game against Sunderland? So, yeah, it's down to Glasner. He's a top manager, and he will get them back winning football matches. But this is a huge blow for the football club, because I know in these cup competitions, he always plays his strongest team and wants to go far in it. But he just didn't have all of his players at his disposal this afternoon. But as I said, credit to Macclesfield. Brilliant. Hopefully Palace can win the Europa Conference League, and I'll have a big smile on my face come the end of the season,
Fabian Schär joined Dan Burn in the treatment room. Schär's ankle injury isn't as bad as first feared, but it may affect Howe's actions in the transfer window.
No break. We think it's just ligament damage. Be seeing a specialist in the next few days to get sort of definitive answers, but maybe more positive than the initial assessment.
Does Fabian's injury change anything in regards to what you're planning to do, what you could do this month in the transfer window?
First of all, we have to get a definitive assessment on the scale of the injury and the time that he's going to be out. At the moment, we're confident Fabian will be back before the end of the season. That's sort of what the guidelines we've been given. But let's see. Then let's see with Dan and other options that we have internally before looking externally.
Oh, joining us now is Newcastle United fan Chris Curry. OK, Chris, we'll ask you about Howe's future in a moment, but first, transfers. Do you need a defender? What else do you need?
Yeah, afternoon, guys. Or morning, sorry. I think we do need a defender, definitely. The centre-half, we used to be quite strong in that position. We had quite a lot of depth. Certainly when we signed Malik Chow, we had Chow, Botman, Schär, Burn. And then I think, obviously, the amount of football we've played, the fatigue, the injuries that have been concerned, that we are really light there now. We haven't really got any academy players to come in to play there. Lewis Miley filled in there. He seems to be able to play anywhere, that young man, to be fair. But we definitely do need a centre-half and probably some full-back cover. I think the perfect solution would be a player who can maybe do both, possibly like a Nathan Aki maybe, but Man City have got defensive problems too. So I think we are in a bit of a situation there. So, yeah, 100% for me, guys, we need a defensive cover because we have got injury-prone players there too, no matter how good they are, Sven Botman, Tino Livramento, and we can't run the risk of any more injuries at the back, really.
Yeah. Chris, he's been a great signing for you, Fabian Schär, but I always feel when he goes down, and it's quite often, I always feel like sometimes he gets carried off, and I hope he's not too bad, obviously, but he seems to play the next game, so I wouldn't read too much into Fabian Schär going down injured because he does it so often.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a running joke. The Fabian Schär head injury, I think, is kind of routine in most Newcastle games now, whether you believe it's dark arts or whatever. But, I mean, that was a bad one, unfortunately, that he had the night against Leeds. And I don't think there was any malice by Calvert-Lewin. It was just two players fighting for the ball. And it's a real shame that he fell that way, because I thought he had a great game, some great tackles, and he was looking at his best. And you're right, Tim, 3 million quid he cost us. And, you know, that's one hell of a signing, really, in terms of what he's done, 250 appearances. But I think the issue is maybe, and it's maybe a little bit of a criticism, is that we've maybe relied on these players who came to us kind of in their 30s, and because they've been so good, we've maybe been a little bit complacent, not look to look at the kind of contingency plan for those players, like we've done at full-back with Livramento and Hall, you know, and obviously with Botman's injuries, that's been a real blow for us too, because the older guys have maybe played too much football, and it's possibly now, you know, fatigued them a little bit, where injuries are coming quite regularly.
Right, Eddie Howe, how concerned are you about his future? Manchester United, by the way, there's no talk that Manchester United are in for him. This is just Roy Keane. It would be his first choice. And a lot of Manchester United fans are getting in touch with us saying that he would be their first choice as well. And all season, we've been talking about England in the summer. Do you think you've got him long term?
Well, I'm not sure if we've got him long term, but I'm certainly not concerned about him going to Manchester United. I think by my count, including interim managers, I think Manchester United have had 5 managers since Eddie Howe has been at Newcastle. He's a manager who wants stability, he wants control. He actually wants to maybe be a little bit more like a throwback manager to a Ferguson or a Wenger. That's the reason where there's maybe been a little bit of friction between sporting directors and Eddie Howe over the last couple of years, because he wants to be involved in scouting and player development, academy development. And at Manchester United, it just seems to be a real toxic place now, whether you're an experienced manager with trophies in your cabinet in the shape of Van Gaal or Mourinho, whether you're a young manager coming through in the shape of Amorim, that job seems to chew you up and spit you out. And I think Manchester United still live in this kind of mindset. The Manchester United that I sadly grew up hating, winning everything, and they're not that team anymore. They're miles away from that. But they're ex-players like Roy Keane and alike, and brilliant players with unbelievable pedigree in the game. They still sometimes forget that Manchester United have slipped down that pecking order in terms of appeal. If Eddie Howe was going to leave Newcastle for another club, if it would maybe be, I don't know, a Chelsea or an Arsenal or even a club abroad. But I think England is probably the one that would concern me about Howe, because I think he's tailor-made for the England job. And I think it's the kind of manager that probably the FA would like, depending on what happens with Thomas Tuchel in the World Cup potentially. But concerned, I think the issue is that the life of a manager is short-term. I think Eddie Howe has probably served longer than most managers, which is a real sad indictment of the state of modern day management. But I think I'd be more worried about him going to England than I would Manchester United, because I just think they are absolutely miles off it. And whoever goes in there next will probably get chewed up and spat out a year later.
How do the club match Eddie Howe's ambitions? He does seem an ambitious manager.
Yeah, he is an ambitious manager. I mean, I think they're always going to struggle with the PSR and the FFP regulations until we get to that point where the commercial revenue is enhanced. The stadium's obviously a huge kind of white elephant in the room for us, because we've got the fans wanting to attend. We've got the ground at full capacity. We can't sell any more tickets. You've got the corporate kind of sponsorship there too. And whether people like it or not, that's a modern day requirement of being one of those clubs. You have to have that money coming in to add to the revenue, and then that can give Eddie Howe more money in the transfer market to play with. But the club have backed him quite well. I mean, he had over 200 million in the summer. Granted, he lost arguably his best player, and that was maybe a little bit mismanaged behind the scenes as well. But I don't blame Eddie Howe for that one. I think he was kind of, if anything, he came out of that looking an even better manager, because that was a really difficult situation to handle as a manager, which makes him appeal to a lot of people like Roy Keane, I suppose. But they just got to keep backing him in the transfer market as best they can within the financial restraints that they're operating under, I think.
OK, Chris, thank you.
A little bit here, because the 1958 supporters group have not exactly been backward in coming forwards in what they've had to say about INEOS in the recent days. Just to quote you some lines, this is what they said and their spokesman said in the last few days. They said United has become a toxic partnership between the INEOS billionaire and the Glazers. The director of football, Jason Wilcox, and the chief executive, Omar Barada, were learning on the job, they said, and should go. And they say this: after lurching from one disaster to another, Radcliffe comes across as an incompetent clown, turning the club into a circus. Is there an argument, Merce, that since INEOS came in, United as a whole have gone backwards?
Yeah, I would probably say so. I mean, to call a man a clown who's a multi-billionaire is a bit strong, in my opinion.
But they're looking at what he's done to United.
Yeah.
Worried about what he's done elsewhere.
Yeah, I think what's happened, he's come in and thought with the jobs he's done at other businesses, he can go and do that at Man United. First of all, he got behind the 8 ball, sacking people from behind the ground who are on, not a lot of money, that are not going to really affect, and then pack lunches or whatever, and still giving players free 350 grand a week who are not playing. I think he got all that wrong. Yeah, I just think, and then he brought the man in, the cycler.
Dave Brailsford.
Yeah,
cycling man, as you used to refer to him as.
Sir Dave. Yeah, Sir David. Yeah, but he's a cycling man. It's like, it's like me going in somewhere after I finish playing and go, do us a favour, you come into Surrey Cricket Club and try
or do some paddle training.
Try and win us the championship, win us the county championship. You know what I mean? Like to say, oh, you've done really well at football.
Well, it's like Sir Clive Woodward at Southampton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It doesn't work. So, yeah, I understand Man United and I understand their fans, and he probably, if he could do it all over again, like there's a lot of things in life, everybody around the world, if you could do it again, you'd probably change it differently. But at the same time, this is not last year and 2 years and 3 years. We're talking 20 years now, Man United. You know, it's not like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It's constant. We still live in this thing of Man United, of like a Ronaldo at his pomp, and Roy Keane, and Rio Ferdinand, and Vidic, and Paul Scholes, and
Rooney,
and Chelsea's, and Rooney, and that gone. It's gone. It's gone. A long time gone. Start now and just try and get back to a little bit. They think now, because it's Man United, they're going to just fly up and win the Premier League. It's got to be done slowly, but they've got to get things right. Can't keep on sacking managers. But they knew this manager played free at the back. And I sat on here a long time ago and said, Chelsea suited Amorim better than Man United did. So they knew when he come that he played free at the back.
And they must have looked rigid to that as well.
Yeah, and they must have known at the time that they didn't have the players to free at the back. So then you go, we don't take you. You know, so for me, there's a lot to be done. But I think there's a lot of people still living in that 20-odd years ago time of Man United, and that's long gone.
Just talking more about INEOS, Sue, because one of their strap lines in terms of a business is the best in class when it comes to decision-making. Well, let's examine some of their decisions then. We mentioned already Erik ten Hag gets that FA Cup win. There were all kinds of reports ahead of that game that he was going to face the sack. They kept him on, gave him a shed load of money to spend in the summer. Then he goes. They bring in Dan Ashworth. He goes. They now bring in Ruben Amorim. They chased him down hard. They prized him away from Sporting Lisbon. He didn't want to go at that stage of the season. And now he's gone as well. It just feels, decision-making-wise, they're a long way from the best in class. Do you trust them to make the right decision long-term going forward now for United?
Well, at the moment, you'd have to say no, wouldn't you? And I think a lot of fans are feeling that as well. Will they make the right decision? Because when you look back at all of the decisions that they've made, or a lot of the decisions that they've made, it hasn't been a success. It hasn't worked. You know, you asked before who's to blame. You've got to say it's collective, isn't it? Of course, the manager's got to take some of the blame, you know, some of his decisions, his tactics and things like that. But when you look at the bigger picture, since, you know, INEOS, Sir Jim Ratcliffe have come in, a lot of the decisions and a lot of the things that he's done has been criticised, and rightly so. That the Ten Hag thing, it looked like he was going to go, didn't it? Like you said, it looked like they were interviewing other managers, or the managers were going to come in. Then they decided to back him. Then they decided to give him loads of money where he brought in players. And then they decided to sack him. So it just seemed like a real sort of waste of money. Obviously, a similar sort of things happened with Amorim, and I know he came out and said things. I don't think they expected to sack him so soon. So at this moment in time, you've got to say you would question the decision and if the decision was right, and you just feel that this next decision has to be right. So the interim manager has to be right, because I think you've got to try and get Manchester United into a good position, whether that's Champions League, whether that's European football, because the manager that potentially could come in the summer, he's then going to want to get the best players, and the best players will only come if they're playing Champions League football. So they have to get it right now. They've then got to get it right in the summer, because there's been so many decisions in the past and previous that we've gone, I'm not sure about that.
And he's also, whoever it is who comes indoors, particularly long-term, come the summer, they're going to have to deal with that dynamic that Amorim struggled with in terms of Jason Wilcox. Now, we know as a player, decent. You know, he won the Premier League with Blackburn. There are question marks over him, though, in terms of his role at Manchester United. I mean, there was a Q&A he did at Old Trafford. They didn't know it was being filmed. It ended up being filmed, and it was released to the wider public. But he spoke quite honestly in that interview, saying, I'm a coach at heart. I am a coach inside, even though I have a different job now. That's a strength of my role, but it causes me a bit of a problem because I always want to interfere, he said, in what managers are doing. It's quite clear he was interfering in terms of what Ruben Amorim was doing. So long term, if that dynamic remains the same, he's very close with the CEO, Omar Barada, as well. How does that play out going forward when you've got a frustrated coach with a very big say?
Yeah, well, I think this boils down to a lot of sporting directors that sometimes aren't accountable for the decisions they make, bringing players in. And unfortunately, in this day and age, coaches are. They stand on the touchline and they're there. They're the ones who are getting all the heat from the fans, from the media. And ultimately, Jason Wilcox there is the man who's bringing the players in. And this isn't at Manchester United. This is across the board. And I know this at lower league as well, by the way, that happens. So a manager or a coach signs up to what he's dealt, and that's where the breakdown happened last week with Ruben Amorim, where he came out and said, I don't want to be a coach, I want to be manager of Manchester United.
I want the final say.
I want the final say in the players that comes in and the recruitment. But I think we see it in Germany where sporting directors are accountable. They come out and say, why did you sign that player? What did you see in that? Because they don't all
Well, they go in
right.
front of the media, don't they?
Yeah, I've seen it at some of my old clubs that this happens, and when it gets wrong, sporting directors maybe get moved on, or maybe aren't accountable for their actions, and that's signing players. And it's the managers that we always speak about. But recruitment at many clubs in the Premier League hasn't been good enough, and it hasn't at Manchester United. And the proof is in the pudding, where we say Mers touches on some of those Manchester United legends. I mean, there isn't too many in this Manchester United team that get anywhere near the era of me growing up. Bruno Fernandes is a top player. I like Cunha that's been brought in. I like Mbeumo that's been brought in. And ultimately, the manager has to coach and get the best out of these players. Ruben Amorim wasn't doing that, but I think the hierarchy at Manchester United have to take an awful lot of responsibility of this as well. And the next question is, who's going to be the right manager? It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So sometimes you get it right and sometimes you get it wrong. And I don't put all that on these, because people will go, you touched on the food and losing jobs. That's unacceptable. That's pathetic. That's really bad management from the top. Trying to get the right manager doesn't always guarantee that it's going to be right. But what they will be trying to do is what they think is the best for the football
Do
club.
you trust them, Ineos, to get it right going forward?
Well, the proof's in the pudding that it hasn't been right so far. But while they're in charge, they make the decisions and they are trying to get it right. But I think the summer is a big factor, where they're waiting for a manager that is charge of maybe a national team, maybe a club, a manager in a club in this country. They're waiting till they're out of work, in my opinion.
And the thing is, Mers, it's no coincidence. You look at the teams at the top of the Premier League at the moment: Arsenal, Aston Villa, Manchester City. There are sporting directors of that club, but the three guys in charge, Arteta, Emery and Guardiola, they are boss. They're in charge. They call the shots. And no coincidence, they're sitting top of the pile. So whoever comes in the summer long term, that dynamic has to be surely on their terms.
Yeah, and the problem with that, when Sir Alex Ferguson was at the top of the game, and Man United were running the show, they were running English football, they were phenomenal. People forget he had unbelievable coaches. And he kept on changing his coaches. Do you know what I mean? It'd be a couple of years or 3 years, they'd change the coach. It was a different voice. Even though you had the manager, all we do here in this country is you just sack the manager. Sometimes players get fed up with the same voice time and time again. You know, when you're a manager of a club, you want someone like a Roy Keane who comes in and has a go at players, so you don't have to have a go at them first. Do you know what I mean? Even when I was at Arsenal with Tony Adams, he'd come in and start having a go at players. If George keeps on doing it, George Graham, and then you start thinking, oh, he's getting on my... You know, everybody forgets... Sir Alex Ferguson was an unbelievable manager. He had unbelievable coaches. And even when they were successful, they still moved on and had another coach, because players get fed up with the same voice week in, week out. And that's not the case now. All we seem to do now is go, right, sack the manager and we'll start again. You know, instead of, you know, look at Pep. Pep's gone and got another coaches, another ideas. And it's just different. You know, this man, they need to get this sorted, Man United, because they're drifting further and further. And I said before, around the world it works, right, where... teams like in Africa and Australia and New Zealand and China and Japan, when they're growing up as little kids, they all want to support the winning team. And whoever that winning team is, they will support that team. And that's why Man United have become the biggest club in the world, because you go to all these countries and everybody supports Man United around a certain age. These young kids now won't be supporting. They'll be supporting teams like Man City and Arsenal, teams that are winning, that, you know, are at the top of the game at the moment. And that's how you get supporters on your side. And it's a cycle, and they need to sort this out, because at the moment, biggest club in the world, or one of them.
Good evening, guys. Hope you're well. We'll set an embargo towards the end for 10:30 p.m. on Sunday evening. So we're joined by Pep Linders. Somewhere to start, please. Sham?
Hi, Pep. Hey. Linders, not Guardiola.
Sorry for that, guys.
How was that for you on the touchline, and what did you make of the performance?
I think, we know Exeter quite well. Of course, we had only 2 days to prepare, but their team, when they, how we saw it, how we analysed them, when they can play, when there's space to play, they really built good the game. I think from the first minute we showed that with our high press, with the way we went after them, is that we really respected that, because the way the performances was on top to get the ball back quick, and it was a good performance. And I think for the fans, for everybody around, the amount of goals, but especially even when it was 4 and 5, we kept pushing, and it was overall a really good day, I think, for Man City.
The £65 million man, Antoine Semenyo, got his debut, scored and an assist, a dream debut for him. And what did you make of his performance as well?
I think a lot of good performances today, a lot of good individual performances. I think when the team plays like that, it becomes easier for the individual, of course, but Antoine is settling well. He's a humble guy. We follow him for a long time, but he brings something to the front line, what we really want and what we need. He can attack quick. He wants to chase. He's a guy who doesn't stop, and I think you see today that he can adapt quite quick as well to our style. It's nice to have him with us, yeah.
Hi, Pep. Sorry, this is a more general question, but I'd like to take the opportunity to ask you this now you're here. Like, in terms of City this season, what's your perspective on what's been good, what needs to improve? How have you seen the season overall so far?
Where to start? I think we are now 12 games unbeaten. The last 3 games we wanted, of course, we created the chances to score more. To score more goals and to win the game. That would already created a different position in the league. But overall, I think we have a really special group. The amount of experienced players who take lead of the team, the way they guide all the others, the way new players are settling in, the energy. And then I'm not talking only about the games, but especially training and in the training center, it's special, and we want to reach finals this year, and we are on way. We play now semi-final for the League Cup. We go around further here in the FA Cup, and we are in the Champions League, of course, in a good position. We want to build on that, but for us, the most important, I think Pep says it all the time, we want to grow, we want to build, we want to make the next step as a team, and for that we need to keep working hard and take nothing for granted, and approach the next game as a final, and that will be Newcastle. And with this, we will grow, and then we will make the next step.
The squad's obviously like really energetic now in terms of the players they're bringing in, and you coming in as well. Is that all part of the same idea? Like when you came in during the summer, what did they say to you for you to bring?
No, I think it's down to the players, the way they. You see, there's example today. There are. How many young players playing from the academy? When you see the fire and how they want to represent this club, and you see how they chase. Everybody speaks about Ryan McAdoo, like the goal he scored, special day, he goes to his dad, and all these things. But the way he pressed today was insane. It was Erling going, Devine going, and he's always following. Rico Lewis going. We had how many boys from the academy playing today? And I think that's a good sign for a club, for healthy, and the boys give energy. And when I'm on the pitch and I see this, then I like to be here. So and then not speaking about Mr. Guardiola and the passion he shows every day and the fire he gives to the players. We hope we can create something special this year.
Hi, Pat. You mentioned Ryan McAdoo there, obviously. Debut a goal, one of several academy players, but I think he's only 17. What have yourself and Pep Guardiola as a coaching staff sort of seen in him to hand him his debut today, and how high do you think his ceiling might be?
Yeah, I think everybody saw it. The guy, he wants constantly the ball, and when the moment he faces the goal, he's so dangerous. He can go inside, he can go outside. He keeps balls in difficult situations to find the last pass and to shoot and this drive of always wanting to create, especially how we play with the guys on the outside to bring the balls there. A lot of times we want these kind of players, and we always say that if you bring guys early, if you get the debut early, train early with the first team with young age, then they can adapt quicker to the intensity of the first team, and with this make these steps we want them to make. And Ryan, today you see glimpses, not only glimpses, but how I say, for me, everybody speak about the way he follow Erling all the time, the way he chased, the way he come back, and he played 95 minutes, and he didn't play for quite a long time because he's always training with us, and he gives me a smile when he reaches the ball, and I think he gives the fans as well a smile when he reaches the ball. that's special. Yeah.
Hello, I'm from Norwegian NRK, broadcasting television. I want to ask you about Oscar Bob. He didn't play today, he's still injured.
No.
What can you say about how another injury is affecting him mentally and
Yeah, Oscar, a boy from the academy as well. I know him since a long time because when I was at Porto, he was one of the young players who came there. So I already knew how good this boy is, and you saw games when he's in the final third, when he's in the box, how he manipulates, how he puts players down, and it's unlucky for him to be injured. And he's a good player, and he's a lovely boy to work with because he always wants more. He always asks for extra work, and he's a little bit similar than Ryan, not in terms of, but you bring the ball on the outside to him in the final third. There are not many other players who can create it on these moments in 1-against-1, 1-against-2 combinations, all these things, and he just makes sure that he comes back strong, and then we take it from there.
Yeah. Did the other Pep, did he have a lot of input during the game? We saw him on his phone.
What do you think? You see him here.
He looked quite like he was sitting there taking it quite calmly today.
The moments there was something needed, he spoke, and it's nice to have this overview from upstairs, and I'm happy that he can help me. I try to help him all the time. No, it's happy, yeah.
Do you think he'll go up there again, or do you think that's...
Nah, no chance, no.
We'll certainly embargo that.
Manchester City dropped more points in the title race, but they have the formidable task of taking on defending champions Liverpool at the Emirates tonight, live on Sky Sports. Arsenal have the chance of going 8 points clear at the top, while Liverpool sit 14 points behind them. Mikel Arteta has defended Liverpool's poor season despite spending almost £450 million in the summer.
The previous year they didn't spend much and they managed to win the Premier League, you know, so that's football and that's the reality of that. At the end, you need a lot of things to go your way to be champion, and almost everything has to be perfect. And the moment you have issues around the squad or with players injured or whatever it is, then it's not that perfect. And we all have gone through those stages, and we all go through those stages throughout the season, and we have to navigate through that.
They can score from open play, they can score from set pieces, they can very good ideas about build up, can play a long ball. So it's a complete. They have the complete package, and that's for that reason they are, in my opinion, they deserve to be on top this season. Me for sure is looking forward to this game because. It's always nice to be part of a Liverpool game, but especially if you face the Real Madrids or Arsenals or City or these kind of games.
Right, Darren McAntony is here until midday. Right, I know that if Arsenal win, they'll be 8 points clear, and you still fancy Manchester City. But that's more a Manchester City and Guardiola thing, isn't it?
Sure.
Rather than you just don't.
Yeah, that's based on probably manager more so than teams. The Arsenal have been superb, but even if they go 8 points, 10 points clear, I'm still not convinced until we get to March. I think, as a legend once said, squeaky bum time separates the men from the boys. So I'm not ready to coronate them champions just yet. Tonight with Liverpool, it can go either way for me. It'll either be an Arsenal will batter them, or Liverpool will get a resilient win. I will be terrified every time Liverpool concede a corner tonight. I'll be hiding behind the couch because of how Liverpool are defending set pieces and Arsenal how good they are at scoring from them. So it'll be fascinating to see if Slot can get his better players, who've been a bit under par this season, to collectively have an 8, 9 out of 10. Because that's what it's going to need tonight to win.
On tonight's game specifically, how much pressure would be on Arne Slot to get something? Because he has spent a lot of money. Liverpool are the champions, but they're so far behind Arsenal. You can't really call it a free hit when it's Liverpool.
No, 100%. It's like we're all worried as Liverpool fans about this game tonight. Ask us 5 months ago and we wouldn't have worried about this game. We would expect to go there and potentially win. It's just because of performances, not necessarily results, over the last couple of months, the way we look aesthetically on the eye, it's not as pleasing. The best thing to happen for Liverpool tonight would be to go there, get a nice 2-0 win, a clean sheet, and look good on the eye. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but but that would be an ideal scenario. So if there's ever a time for Arsenal to start that wobble, tonight, please.
Well, Sky Sports are partnered with Finalysis to discover true fan opinion. To have your say on your club, download the Finalysis app now, or you can scan that QR code which is on your screen. Right, we're joined now by Arsenal fan Scarlett Katz-Roberts and Liverpool supporter Sarah Luca. Good morning to both of you. Scarlett, is this the biggest ever night at the Emirates?
I sound like a football manager, but, you know, isn't every night the biggest night in a title run? Villa felt absolutely huge last week, and we came over that hurdle, and this is the next one. What I'll say about this is I'm really excited, and I hope the atmosphere reflects that. I know that there's something planned pre-game, and yeah, I just hope this turns out to be one of those wins that you remember on the way to a title. But is this the biggest night ever? That feels like something I can only answer if we've lifted the title in May.
Well, Sarah...
Or it'll be a big night if they lose and then suddenly go off a cliff and, you know, City and us catch up.
Good. Oh, Sarah, you said if you could catch up, so...
I love the optimism.
You haven't given up on the title, then. It sounds like you haven't given up on the title.
And until it's mathematically out of our reach, I cannot give up.
See, a positive fan there. Positive fan. We like that. Can you believe, though, Sarah? Let's say I said to you after 4 or 5 games this season, you're going to go into this game on the 8th of January, 14 points behind Arsenal. What would you have said?
You're mad. Like, seriously, when I can't remember a time when I've been this scared of Arsenal, like, ever. Like, I don't know what has happened to us. It's crazy. It's why I'm wearing my black shirt today. 1, Alisson can't let anything in. And 2, I'm in mourning still of kind of, you know, how we look on the pitch. Not necessarily the results, because that has stopped the rot. But I just can't identify a lot of our players from last season. And that is what's really, really hurt us.
Scarlett, would you have believed that you'd be 14 points ahead of Liverpool?
No, and I think, you know, Dara and I were chatting at the beginning of the season about how close we felt this title race was going to be. Yeah. Certainly, Lola, my Liverpool supporting twin, was very chirpy at that time of the season. She was talking about Liverpool putting their throat on the foot of the putting their foot on the throat of the rest of the division. But that's not how things panned out. And I think sometimes things break for you. They broke for Liverpool last season. Yeah. They've broken for Arsenal this season. Which, you know, feels like finally. And I think we've also made our own luck. I still think we could have been having a very different conversation if Wirtz had hit the ground running, if Isak was fit and firing. Yeah. And they may yet turn out to be good. So, yes, I'm surprised there's a massive gap, but am I surprised that things can go wrong quickly in the Premier League? No.
No, this could be... Tonight's game could be a get-right game for Liverpool. You know, they've had so much aggro, a lot of negativity about performances, too many top players, McAllister, you know, Van Dijk, Konate, players who haven't played at that top form. They go to Arsenal tonight and almost upset, you know, the odds and go and win. It's almost a get-right game for the season ahead. And it could set Liverpool up for not just this season, but for next season. And if we do put a wobble into you guys, I'll have to apologise, Scarlett, because I know how much this title means to you guys. But it's going to be a fascinating game. It could be the game of the season tonight.
But to me, it feels ridiculous that we would be speaking about this game in those terms, in terms of Liverpool winning being an upset. They're still Liverpool. Yeah. Like, this is the biggest, you know, if not one of the biggest clubs in the country, in the world. So it's a massive game. And I don't think Arsenal fans should underestimate that at all.
No.
Sarah, you were trying to jump in there.
We all know that we're so frustrating, right? We know we can turn it on against the big boys, and we will probably tonight. And that is what is so frustrating as a Liverpool fan right now. You know, if we win tonight, yes, we'll be incredibly happy, but we'll also be like, why the hell have they not been doing that all season? And we could see that happen tonight. You know, either a 1-0 or a 2. It would be good to do a 1-0 at Arsenal, wouldn't it? But a 2-1. And, you know, we might just do that. And we might fight to the death like we have done in previous games at the start of the season.
How much pressure is on Arne Slot, Sarah?
Oh, it's immense. I mean, if you look at the Finalysis ratings of managers, well, it's 1 point above Amorim. Slot's fan
He's getting
rating,
battered.
and Amorim's gone. I think if we are annihilated tonight, I hope that won't happen. Surely the club has got to think about a plan B.
Oh, really?
And I think that plan B might be Stevie Gerrard coming in an interim and then waiting for Alonso. And I hate saying that because then we'd be like Man United, trying to bring the Liverpool way back by bringing a legend back in. Now, I hope that doesn't happen. I am very much behind Slot, and I think he'll be great, a great manager and great, hopefully, at Liverpool. But if it's a 5-0 loss, surely the club has got to do something.
Dara, 5-0 loss, Slot out.
That's my concern tonight. And Sarah's absolutely right about the ratings and the way people are feeling about Slot. You read the stuff on their social media every time Liverpool have a draw or a loss. It's quite horrendous. You see people talking about a manager who's just won the Premier League title. So I do worry tonight that if Arsenal turn up and are as good as they can be, and we're just not at it, that they could batter us tonight. But I'm in that mind of it's either going to be a tight Liverpool win or a battering from Arsenal. I'm not sure the board at Liverpool are going to fire Arne Slot for that. I think they know we have issues, and there are bigger issues. There's still areas to address squad-wise in the next couple of windows. I think it's too early to be getting rid of a manager who's just won the Premier League, who's just finally getting his own players. And, yes, it's not pretty to watch. It's not sexy to watch the football, but he definitely needs time. I think we need some of the players back that are injured. There's been some of that going on. But I do worry tonight. Regards Steven Gerrard and people like that, forget those conversations. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, if we have to go for any manager in the summer, we know who we're bringing back for his final soiree for the next few seasons. There's only one guy.
No. But I just can't believe the drop-off, not only on kind of points and performance, but also if it's true that Semenyo goes to City and that Guehi goes to City, the fact that in the summer we were winning on any player we wanted, and then now we had talks with Semenyo in November, he would fit straight into the squad, especially with Mo Salah out, can work on left and right. If he goes to City, he might be a bench warmer more than
There's one word in football, Sarah, that you have to understand and the way it works. Now, I own a football club and I'll tell you, momentum. You have momentum, you lose momentum. Yep. And it's vicious either way sometimes. And at the moment, in the summer, Liverpool had all the momentum. They started the season with momentum. You look at it now, there is no momentum. Everything is just awful, and we need to sack the manager, and the players are crap, and they're not as good as they were last year. You win 5 games in a row, Arsenal lose 2-3 games in a row. You ask Scarlett over there about the word momentum. Things change quickly in football, and nothing stays the same forever.
Okay.
Scarlett, let's hope that happens tonight.
Scarlett, are you concerned with Manchester City? Semenyo is going to happen today. They are linked with Mark Guehi as well. How much will they help Manchester City in terms of chipping into that lead that you've got?
Of course I'm concerned. The fan in me wants Pep Guardiola to hold his hands up after we hopefully win tomorrow and say, look, Arsenal deserve this title, here you go. But the fact is, City will never roll over. I mean, I don't know if anyone saw that quote that they put up at their training ground. Some fans tweet telling them that they never give in. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop trying. They're going to sign 2 peak age players who are in brilliant form, and they're going to go for it, and they're going to fight tooth and nail. I think the thing that gives me hope or makes me less nervous about them signing these players is that it smacks of desperation, which, I think is what it is. They're trying to right some wrongs. And maybe the gap by that point will be unassailable. I don't think that's the case. I think they're going to keep going. But of course I'm concerned about Guehi in particular, because I think their defence has struggled this season.
Do you need any signings this January to make sure that you definitely get over the line?
No, I think there are such things as too big a squads, even in the modern game. And I think it's tempting when you see teams like City who, have big financial muscles to flex. Arsenal have obviously spent big in the summer. I acknowledge that. But I think it can be tempting to feel that you then have to react. And I think a title-winning squad, which hopefully I'll know a lot about at the end of this season, is a finely balanced thing. And you need to keep people involved. Eze's sat 4 games out, hasn't played at all. We've got incredibly talented players like Ethan Nwaneri not getting into match day squads. So I think as tempting as it is to want to continue to add, you have to recognise that, there are individuals there that need to be kept involved, because I am sure there will be plenty of football to play and we're going to need them at some point.
Well, just before Christmas, Sarah, when we asked you, it was you, me and Dara sitting here, wasn't it? And we asked you what you wanted for Christmas. You said you'd been a good girl, and you said you pretty much wanted about 4 top quality players to come so far. Now you've lost out on Semenyo. Are you still hopeful that you get a few in this month?
I've got to believe that we get Guehi. Like, seriously. He literally did his photo shoot in a Liverpool shirt, did all his press, and then it was pulled at the final second. Like, surely, if he's a man of honour, speaking to him directly here, if he's a man of honour, he will come to Liverpool and he will make a huge difference to us. And, I hope that's the case. And yes, I also want Rodgers and Morton, a girl can dream.
That was it, Rodgers and Morton, they were the others. Dara, I know how much, you want Guehi at Liverpool as well.
Yeah, I'd love Liverpool to make one last splash and sign a couple of players. I would have given anything for Semenyo and Guehi. That would have been just the tonic and the lift, probably slot that dressing room and the fan base need at the moment. So I would be disappointed to leave this window. I know they do their business predominantly in the summer and it's not always January, but when you look at the deficiencies in the squad, I'm listening to Scarlett talk about players we'd love to have in our squad who weren't even getting games at Arsenal, and we're lacking in those areas. So we can rain on Slot and we can criticise and hammer him, give him a little bit more help in this window, which sounds mad after the money they've spent. But
OK, prediction for tonight, Scarlett, quick one.
2-0 Arsenal.
Sarah?
2-1 Liverpool.
Oh, either way, it is going to be a big game. Scarlett, Sarah, thank you very much.
I think he made a few tweaks second half, Fletcher. Hopefully they can go on a run now, but, it's still poor, isn't it? Like we talked about control.
Did the system look better, though? It's not about the system.
All right. I mean, that
Isn't
goal
the
there
point
was
getting
just
your best
there.
players in the right position?
Yeah, but people talk about three at the back's not a bad system. It's a good system, but the players that he's played in those systems and the mistakes that he's made along the way have been the mistake.
Yeah.
That's where it's all fundamentally gone wrong for him. And taking off players. When if you have to. When things aren't going your way, you have to maybe go to a back 4 or change it, or maybe look, we're losing this game, they've got a man sent off, you don't stay free at the back. And that's what Amorim kept making. Those are the mistakes. So even if the next manager comes and wants to play 3 at the back, you can still have success playing it. Do I think it's the way forward for Man United? No, because it's more of a counter-attacking system. But it is still a good system.
Just on that point, Jamie, we can show you the stats from the game. You talk about the counter-attacking system of the 3 at the back and the difference that maybe it makes if you do play 4 at the back for Manchester United, and you get Bruno Fernandes playing up higher the pitch. 30 shots that Manchester United have had, the most they've had in a Premier League game this season. This has come away from home, remember, as well. And expected goals figure is 2 more than Burnley. So you'd normally expect to be winning a game on that basis, but they've had one fly in from the deflection in the first half, and then Jane Anty has scored that cracking equalising goal as well. Did you see the evidence that this is the way forward? Is that enough evidence that this is the way forward for 4 at the back, 3 in midfield?
I think it's easier for every player to learn to play 4 at the back. I think they're better set up to do that. They need to get in support of Sesko, so it helps you get support of him. Get Bruno Fernandes on the ball further up the field. Ugarte and Casemiro is not the answer in the midfield area. They need someone in there. If they're going to get Bruno on the ball and Cunha on the ball, they need them on the ball higher up the field and more often than what they did tonight. And if they do that, I think they can cause problems, they can create chances and they can win football matches. But I go back to what Jamie says, whether it's 3 at the back or whether it's 4 at the back, the same mistakes are being made. We saw that there with Casemiro letting Humphreys go for that first goal. That is nothing to do with systems. That's just the fundamentals of running back and being disciplined and being responsible when you need to defend.
Are there grounds for optimism, do you think, from what we saw from Manchester United? Not in terms of the result, but in terms of the performance?
Yeah, it was OK. I thought they had moments when they went 2-1 up. I thought they were going to cruise and win the game comfortably. They obviously didn't do that. For Darren, I like Darren Fletcher. He's a proper football man. He's had a fantastic career as a player. I don't know whether he wants a job. I can't speak for him. Obviously, there's been other candidates. Michael Carragher.
Why would he not want the job?
Because he might not think he's ready. He might not think he's got the credentials to do it. Because Man United, the reason why they've been one of the biggest or most successful clubs for many years, when they were, was because they had the best in class.
They had the best manager, Alex Ferguson. Obviously, probably wasn't when they got him from Aberdeen, no one quite knew how well it was going to go, but it did. Then they'd always sign the best players to help the manager. Yeah. But right now, they haven't married the two together. They've sometimes tried to get best in class in managers, but they haven't got the best players. Now they have to make sure they do both. And I don't think that, no disrespect to the guys that again mentioned, Ollie, Michael.
But this is the talk about the interim, isn't it, Jamie?
For the interim.
Before they have try and find the best in class in the summer. Yeah. But if it is to be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, why not Darren Fletcher?
My point earlier was it's not going to change a lot in the summer. If the managers are there, you've got to have an idea of who you want. Say if you think Maresca's around now, then try and get Maresca. If you think that's the one. If you think, I personally, I mentioned it before, Andoni, Iraola at Bournemouth, I'll be getting him. The way that his teams have played over the last couple of years are absolutely incredible. If you look at other managers that are possible, if they're available now, just get them. Why wait till the summer? The summer doesn't change anything. You're still going to have the same problems. You want to start talking to players to get them in. Who are you going to sign next year? They'll want to know who the manager is coming in. But the quicker you do it, the better.
The noise is RJ that they just want someone until the summer. Yeah. So he's got nothing to lose by doing it himself. Nothing to lose whatsoever. He can go back to his old job and he can do that. And why won't he do as good a job as Michael Carragher or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? It's a risk, whoever they bring in. They could bring an established manager in. They could bring a trophy manager in. There's no guarantees. We've seen that with other managers who have come, superstar managers, supposedly. And they come into Man United and they don't do it. They don't do it. So there's no guarantees.
Michael did a really good job at Middlesbrough. Yeah, really good. Very unlucky. And I think he could go in there and do a job. I don't understand the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer one. I just don't. I know he was there before, interim, then he became the manager. I saw his face at the end of it. He looked like a beaten man. And now it looks like they're going to get him back again. That just makes no sense to me. And, other managers, if it is Darren or if it's Michael Carrick, then to the end of the season, that's fine. The Ole Gunnar Solskjaer one, I struggle with a bit.
Conversation. Some say gone too soon, Tim. Some say not soon enough. Where are you on this?
I think Ruben's decided when he wants to leave the football club. I think he's got what he wanted. As soon as he spoke out against the hierarchy, I thought it was inevitable he would lose his job. There's no way you can do that. It's impossible. I really wanted to like this guy. When he first come into the club, the charisma he had, he's obviously talked his way into the job. He's a very, very good talker. We've seen that. Great. Sporting Lisbon done fantastic. I think he underestimated the Premier League. You can't come in with just one style of play and just say, I'm going to be so stubborn, I'm going to stick to that and I'm not going to be flexible enough to change it. No matter what he had. He's learnt about the players. He's obviously not liked them. Too much. Having said that, we've just looked at the table there. They're not too far off it. So it's a good opportunity for someone else to go in. But I think he's made the decision. I think it's up to him. I really believe that Man United did not want to get rid of this guy. I think they would have kept him till the end of the season. They would have assessed where they were after that. But I think once you talk out, like Enzo Maresca has done at Chelsea, I think both managers have got what they wanted, and that is to leave the football club with a nice payday.
Interesting. OK, so you think he's maybe forced Manchester United's hand, and maybe that's possible, Jamie. If you can say things against your leaders, your bosses, if your record is better than Ruben Amorim's was. Was this the big problem for Ruben Amorim, for all his likeability in press conferences and his stubbornness, I suppose, to his formation, that he just didn't get the results to back it up?
Absolutely. And we gave him a lot of leeway because of what Jim Ratcliffe said. When Jim Ratcliffe said, no, we are going to give this guy time, we all went, OK, well, fair enough, we'll give him time. But like Tim says, he knew what he was doing. He knew what the exit was, and he got himself out at the right time for him. I don't ever believe he understood the assignment, if I'm honest. I remember doing the first game, it was Ipswich, they drew 1-1, and he came over to talk to us. I don't think he enjoyed it because Ed Sheeran came over, and I think it was a bit of he didn't quite like what was happening. And I remember looking at his face, and he said, all I've done all week is so much press, and this isn't really what I'm used to. And I'm thinking, if you don't know what Manchester United is all about, it's one of the biggest clubs in the world, you are going to do a lot of press, and you better get used to it really quickly. And I felt from that moment, has he really enjoyed this job? And it hasn't been the case. I think the system thing, Tim, is spot on. And when he turned around a couple of weeks ago and said, well, if I would have changed the system, then I would look weak as a manager. No, you would have looked strong. I have no problem with that system. Conte's made that system work. You can make that system work, but you also have to adapt. And if you're playing 3 at the back and the team's got 10 men, you don't need to keep 3 at the back. You shouldn't be losing away at Grimsby. A lot of the results that he had were absolutely disgraceful. And normally, any other Manchester United manager would have been sacked long, long time ago. But because Jim Ratcliffe gave him that peace of mind that he's safe. But Tim's right. He knew what he was doing. He knew where the exit was, and he took it as quickly as he could.
The story was, wasn't it, that he'd had that conversation with Jason Wilcox before the game at the weekend, and they'd had a bit of a disagreement, and he'd reacted emotionally to suggestions of sticking to 4 rather than 3 at the back. And I'll be interested to see what Darren Fletcher does tonight. This is Ruben Amorim compared with every other Manchester United manager in this Premier League era who's taken charge of 20 games or more. And his record, again, is not favourable. 31.9% win ratio. 10 even fewer than Ralph Rangnick, who had a really tough time there. Interestingly, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is up here, 51.4%. He is currently the favourite for the job. Might he find his way back in at Old Trafford?
It looks that way. I mean, if Ruben had a 51.8% win ratio, he'd be third in the league. You know, it just shows you, what the state of the Premier League at the moment. I think there's 2 outstanding teams, Man City and Arsenal. I think the rest of it is mediocre. I really believe that. And I think evidence of that is where Manchester United are at the moment. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the front runner.
The front runner for what terms of just coming back as an
interim manager, yeah. My choice would be Michael Carragher. I just have a feeling about Ole. Ole took them to second place. Let's not forget that. But it ended badly for him. And he just, when I saw him in front of the press or on the touchline, and just look into his eyes, and he looked like he was a rabbit in the headlights. He looked like he was scared of the job. I'm not saying he was. That was just my feelings when I look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think Michael's carries himself a bit better. I think.
And you've been down that route. It doesn't normally work out going back again, Tim, does it?
No, but they need something for the interim period. They need something, and I think they're right to turn to a Manchester United person.
First of all, how does that sit with you, 24 hours or so on?
I thought after the press conference at Leeds United, I thought that he was in trouble. I thought after the Wolves performance and the fans staying at the end to boo en masse, I thought there was, the sort of clouds were circling after that point. But then obviously after the press conference, it was plainly obvious that, before the Leeds game, wasn't it? Or was it after the Leeds game? I can't even think now. It was after the Leeds game. That was basically sort of, I think the writing was on the wall. What did surprise me, I thought they might leave him in for a couple of weeks just to work things out. But I thought he was done after the Leeds press conference. When you take on your bosses in any single job in the world, you're likely to lose your job pretty quickly.
So I don't know if you know any more than us on this next part of the solution for Manchester United, Gary, but what we're sort of hearing is that they're looking for an interim now to take them till the summer when there'll be a permanent appointment made. So on that basis, has Darren Fletcher basically got tonight, and maybe the cup game at the weekend as well, to show that he should be one of those under consideration?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've got to bring someone in, I think, who's done it before. I think that what they can't do is imagine that this is going to go well. I was put in a football club for 4 months and told to sort of steer the ship to shore for the rest of the season. It doesn't quite work like that. And Manchester United have had a very challenging experience with Ralph Rangnick. It went well last time they put Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in. All I would say is, as long as someone basically has done it before, got a bit of experience, can handle the media, can handle if maybe results don't go their way, they need to get to the end of the season, because I think the next appointment is obviously crucial. But there's still a lot to play for this season. I do think if Manchester United can get De Ligt, Maguire, those lads back from obviously AFCON, and Bruno Fernandes fit, who we might be fit tonight, they've still got a chance of achieving Champions League football this season. But things are going to have to go their way. But it's looking like they are going to appoint someone to the end of the season and then look at what would be a more bigger name manager at that point. One thing I would say is, even if someone comes in right now and has the most brilliant 4 months, Manchester United still need to make that decision at the end of the season to appoint an experienced manager who's world class.
So in the interim, if it's not Darren Fletcher, would you support a return for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
I would not. I mean, I think that there is an element of... we saw this at Liverpool, didn't we, for like 25, 30 years when they were going through that period where they weren't winning, and they sort of... You almost go through cycles whereby, and United have done this for 12 years now, they put Ryan in charge 10 years ago, then Ole came in charge, and you go back to the old boys, and then you go for a new one, then you go for a more, and it's almost like a cycle, it's almost like a movie that we've all seen before, and Groundhog Day. So look, what I do think is that Ole is someone that absolutely loves the club, he knows the job, he's been in the job, The other names that are being mentioned, obviously Michael Carrick and Ruud van Nistelrooy, these are really fantastic people. I played with those guys for a lot of years. They love the club intensely, they get the club, but still, they're still going to come under a lot of pressure in this next 4 or 5 months if results don't go their way. So, look, I think they have to be ready for that. Either whoever's going to get it out of those three that are being mentioned, I wish them all the best because it's a tough role.
But we start with Liverpool, who travel to the Emirates tomorrow night for a huge showdown with the league leaders Arsenal. Live to our reporter Vinny O'Connor. Vinny, good afternoon to you. We've been speaking Liverpool all day with our fans here in the studio as well. You've been speaking to the main man, Arne Slot, earlier today. What did he have to say about the centre-back situation and potentially, Vinny, missing out on Mark Guehi?
Well, there was a bit of a cheeky moment, really, from Arne Slot. Clearly, he had to be asked about Mark Guehi, but in the press conference today, it was another reporter who asked him about it rather than myself. And Arne Slot quipped back that maybe I'd learnt my lesson by not asking him because you know that he's not going to say anything about transfers. The actual truth of the matter is that I'd done an interview with Arne Slot prior to his press conference and I'd asked about Mark Guehi in that interview with him as well. That's something you'll be able to see tomorrow on Sky Sports News in the Premier League show as well, ahead of the game against Arsenal. But as I say, we were right to ask about Mark Guehi because of the situation that Liverpool have found themselves in. They had that £35 million bid accepted by Crystal Palace in the summer on deadline day, of course. Ultimately, that deal didn't go through, and now there's the interest from Manchester City. So there is the prospect on Liverpool missing out on a target, and at times this season they've had to operate with just two fit, experienced centre-halves in Ibrahima Konate and Virgil van Dijk because of the injuries to Joe Gomez, Giovanni Leone as well, who they've got high hopes for, but obviously on his debut against Southampton, he went down with that ACL injury. So obviously it would make sense for them to add to their centre-half options in Mark Guehi, but that interest, of course, from Manchester City complicates things somewhat. So Arne Slot was asked about the prospect of still bringing in Mark Guehi during this transfer window, or indeed what disappointment it would be were they to miss out to a club like Manchester City. And this is what Arne Slot had to say.
Now, Vinny is always asking the first question, and usually I expected this question from him, but he now knows that I never talk about transfers in public, let alone talking about a transfer from maybe another club. So yeah, he after 1.5 years now knows it's no use of asking that question, but you can try, but my answer is always the same. We don't talk about players that are not ours. I think there is no manager in the world that would tell you, oh, I'm completely happy that I only have 2 centre-backs available. But you have to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that we've signed an unbelievable, talented player with Giovanni Leone, who will be back next season. And this is the way this club works.
So, Vinny, a huge game tomorrow night at the Emirates. Mikel Arteta's men 14 points clear of Slot's champions. That wasn't on many people's bingo cards in August, was it?
No, it wasn't. I think there's a good deal of frustration at Liverpool as well because they've come up with big performances at times this season. Go back to Inter Milan in the Champions League. Go back to earlier in the season and third game into the season, just before the first international break. And, of course, Liverpool ran out winners against Arsenal as well. That stunning Dominic Szoboszlai strike that gave Liverpool all 3 points. And that was the third game in to a 7-game winning streak in all competitions. But, of course, then came the defeat to Crystal Palace. And that was the start of a run where they went 9 defeats in 12 games as well. Since then, they've been able to pick up somewhat. They're unbeaten in the last 8 in the Premier League, of course, but it's 4 wins and 4 draws in that time, 2 consecutive draws as well. As you say, it leaves them 14 points behind Arsenal at the moment, 8 points behind Aston Villa and Manchester City, who are 3rd and 2nd in the Premier League at the moment, respectively, as well. I think there's an acceptance at the moment that Liverpool playing a part in this title race now, or even retaining the title, is highly unlikely. But at the same time, they've still got plenty to play for, of course, qualifying for next season's Champions League, as well as still having this season's Champions League to concentrate on, and the FA Cup as well coming up at the weekend as well. So still the potential to deliver a trophy this season. But certainly, if the unlikely is to happen and Liverpool are to get back into the race for the title now, then clearly they need to take all 3 points against Arsenal. They certainly can't afford to lose this one.
Vinny, thank you very much, mate. There we go, Vinny O'Connor live after that Arne Slot press conference, which I know you've been watching this afternoon. Rob Earnshaw, great to have you with us. Here's straight in with the big question. Who needs Mark Guehi more, Liverpool, Manchester City?
It's a hard one. To be honest, both.
especially when you look at, I was at the Manchester City game the other day and Ruben Diaz goes down injured and Gvardiol goes down injured as well. So 2 key players for Manchester City. So if you look at that, probably maybe Man City, but I would say that Virgil van Dijk, that he needs a partner. Konate's been below par, even though he's very, very good. But definitely maybe Man City if I was going to pick a team that needs him more. But interesting how 6 months changes everything. 6 months ago, of course, Liverpool, for sure. It was almost done. But then now you think the most likely would be probably go to Man City because they're competing. You play under Guardiola, and they've also got injuries. So maybe it might be the perfect moment for Guehi to, in 6 months it completely changes and he's going to be playing against Liverpool.
Yeah, James, I know our Palace fan Reece here doesn't want to hear about Mark Guehi leaving in the window, but do you think City/Liverpool, someone goes aggressive for him and doesn't risk losing out on him in the summer when he's a free?
At the moment, Mark Guehi holds all the cards. He's got a contract for the next 6 months. He can then leave for free, choose wherever he wants to go. In this window, he's got the opportunity to start speaking to clubs in Europe and sign a pre-contract for the summer. So the cards are close to him. For Premier League sides like Manchester City and Liverpool, it feels like this is your chance to act now. Now, for Manchester City, Pep Guardiola has made it clear he didn't expect much activity in January. They did a lot of business last January. He expects business to be done in the summer. The injuries to Gvardiol, the injury to Ruben Diaz may change that, may change their feeling, but they've still got Kushinov, John Stones to come back, Nathan Ake's still there as well, and they bought back Elaine from Watford, who's been on loan there this season. So they've got the cover there, so they don't necessarily need to dip into the window. For Crystal Palace, it's a decision for Mark Guehi. Does he want to stick there for 6 months and then choose a lovely contract at the end, by the way, where his contract will be worth a lot more? Or does he think, actually, now's the time, this is the time to move on, and perhaps Manchester City, Liverpool could be a destination?
Well, let's get the Liverpool side of things. Lola, you've been sitting there patiently, and I'm sure you've got lots to say, because is there a frustration at all? It looks like Antoine Semenyo, who we'll talk about in a minute as well, is going to Manchester City. You can't let Guehi go there as well, can you? I mean, out of the two of them, is Guehi the one you would need more?
I feel very conflicted about this because I'm very frustrated that we waited until the last week of the window to try and sort out the Guehi deal in the summer.
That was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that needed to be a priority much earlier in the window, especially after selling Jarrell Kwanzaa. The reality is, with the exception of Leone, who is such a young player, I don't know if you can really call him a senior centre-back signing, we haven't signed a centre-back since Ibu Konate in 2021, and that's negligent, really, if you're running a football club. So we certainly need a centre-back, but I do question whether Guehi is right for us because he's 6 foot. Reece reliably informs me that he can do it all, and you know, he's not weak in the air, but Liverpool are under aerial bombardment at the moment because we can't defend set pieces. Konate and Van Dijk both top the league for the most clearances and headers. So I question whether he's the right player for us in this scenario. Konate's always done better when he's had competition. Reece will disagree with me on this again, but I actually do think of fit and firing Ibu Konate, there's not many centre-backs better, so is Guehi better? I don't know.
Has he been firing, though, Konate?
No,
maybe fit?
No, far from it. But I just wonder whether it'd be better for us to look at the long term, where there's big question marks around Konate's contract. We've only really got another 18 months of Virgil van Dijk. I think we need 2.
Is Mark Guehi then the perfect guy to come in to not only play alongside Virgil van Dijk, but to also surpass Virgil van Dijk when he moves on? A leader, someone who's got such a strong head on his shoulders. Regardless of what was going on in the summer with the move to potentially happen to Liverpool not happening, he still dusted himself off, never complained, turned up to training, worked hard every single day. Surely that's the kind of player and defender and captain that Liverpool want.
Look, there's tons to like about him, and I think where Reece and I disagree is that I think Guehi, while he would improve us right now, because as everyone has said, Konate is not playing well, I see him as a floor raiser, but not as a ceiling raiser. And whoever eventually replaces Van Dijk, you know, Van Dijk is the best to ever do it.
for me to ever do it in the Premier League at centre-back. So I can't even put them in the same conversation. So, no, I'm not sure he is the perfect guy.
Ever? Forever, ever?
Ever.
I would just say on Mark Guehi, I think when you talk about ceiling raisers and floor raisers, I think Mark Guehi, probably his ceiling, he doesn't really have one. I feel like he could go to any team in the world and probably be their starting centre-back. And that's just his playing ability, not to talk about his leadership, like you say, his professionalism, to go through, having that move sort of taken away from it at the last minute and to be in the starting lineup next week and to dust himself down and to play. And that's just him, the professional side. I think if you talk about him as a player, I think you don't get much better than Mark Guehi.
You did say to me that Van Dijk was the best to ever do it.
Yeah, personal preference. He's my favourite ever Premier League centre-back. But I think Mark Guehi's ceiling is crazy.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the actual Palace point of view on all of this, because obviously they're desperate to keep him. But, Rob, as James says, the ball is in Guehi's court, and there are plenty of courts he can go and play on next season.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not just Liverpool and Manchester City in that conversation as well. I'm sure he's having other conversations for sure, because he is quality. And you talk about, OK, who else is out there? Mark Guehi's right in that top list of centre-backs in world football right now, where you think, OK, we can get him at a good price. He's quality. He brings something to every team. So he is all of those things. It would be very interesting, though, where his head is at, because I think 6 months ago, he would have had a slightly different way of looking at it than right now. I think right now, he widens his maybe approach a little bit more, because I think he would have wanted Liverpool 6 months ago, for sure.
Do you think that's changed, considering Liverpool's season so far?
I think so, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if I'm in his shoes, I'd look at it, because...
You've got to be playing Champions League football at least next season, haven't you?
Exactly, yeah. Because he's at the stage where, what is the next step? The next step for Mark Guehi is Champions League, is competing at that level consistently. Well, what's more guaranteed than a Liverpool?
So are you saying that
Manchester City?
He would look at the table
Liverpool.
Now, Liverpool, right? And bearing in mind that Manchester United, Bradley, this is some good news for you, mate. Could be fourth. Could be fourth. Who knows? If you do the business against Burnley, at least tonight before Liverpool play. Would Guehi, Rob, be looking at that table and thinking, do you know what, it's too risky, because Liverpool might not be playing Champions League football? Can he risk a season without playing in Europe's elite at his age now? 25?
I don't think so, no, because now is the right time for him. And he's got this window, and of course the next probably 4 months, not even 6 months, next 4 months to really decide if it goes past. I don't think he'll go past this month. I think Man City want him right now. I think Liverpool want him right now. And I think there'll be 2 or 3 others that really, really want him. But I don't think they'll compete enough with those two. So I actually think right now for him is the perfect time for him to go. I think it's going to be hard for Crystal Palace for sure.
Yeah.
But Guehi is a wanted man. And I think he's going to make the right decision.
Yeah. Shall we hear from Oliver Glasner? Because this is the Crystal Palace boss speaking about his captain's future.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what will happen. And I mentioned these injuries can happen. Never know. But what I know, Mark will play tomorrow. I expected he trained. But I don't know what will happen.
Reece, you are desperate to keep him, as I think you speak for a lot of Crystal Palace fans, because of the money per place, and you've got a lot of places to climb in that table now. How do you replace Mark Guehi?
That's really difficult. I think for a club like Crystal Palace, you don't necessarily replace him man for man. I think our recruitment's been pretty spot on. Maxence Lacroix, what a great signing that was. Daniel Munoz on the right, and a lot of that was done by Dougie Freedman when he was a sporting director, and obviously he's moved on now. So there is a sense of worry around who is now in charge of identifying those targets. So there is a worry replacing Guehi. I think to an extent, maybe you don't. You adapt and you find a different style. But I think he's not a cut and clear case where you replace him outright for us.
Now to a significant update from Manchester United. They're speaking to a number of options about taking the interim head coach role until the end of the season, including their former manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick and interim Darren Fletcher. Let's speak to our football correspondent Rob Dorset. What further detail can you add to that?
Well, that's pretty big news in its own right, isn't it? That we can tell you at this afternoon on Sky Sports News. The fact that Manchester United have now begun the process, they are talking to candidates, I think is significant. And I think it's also significant that 3 former Old Trafford favourites are in the mix for a possible return to take on this interim manager's role. Now, what's been explained to me from various people that I've been speaking to is that United are primarily looking for an interim manager until the end of the season, but they certainly haven't ruled out the possibility that from these conversations with head coaches and available managers that they're having right now, they might find somebody that they decide they want to give the job to substantively. But the focus right now is for an interim coach, and it looks like they're primarily looking at people that they know. There are other candidates they're speaking to as well beyond those, but the fact that Michael Carrick, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Darren Fletcher are 3 names that have been spoken to about the role, I think is significant. Pretty clear that Manchester United wants somebody who can hit the ground running, who knows the club well, and who can take United on from a pretty strong position in the league. They're only 6th in the Premier League right now, and see where they go from there. It's Jason Wilcox, the Director of Football, who's leading the process. He's had some informal conversations, is the way it's been described to me so far, with all of these candidates. But he's expected to conduct more formal interviews with some of them going forward over the coming days before he makes a recommendation for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to make the rubber stamp the final decision. No timescale's been set, but from what I'm gleaning between the lines, it sounds like that Fletcher will be in charge for this game against Burnley on Wednesday night in the Premier League, and then against Brighton in the FA Cup on Sunday. I think it's going to be difficult for United to get somebody in before then. And he is himself a contender for the interim role until the end of the season. But I think from United's point of view, they've always seen him as a promising coach for the future. He's been working with the under-18s, remember. He's never worked with the first team before. So I think there are certain concerns that maybe throwing him in at the deep end with United so well placed for the rest of the season is a big ask. But certainly, from what I've been told, he's had a really good impact on the players already. They've liked working with him. He had his first training session with them yesterday. They like the way that he communicates with them. And the players know Darren Fletcher anyway very well. Because he's
Two of them very well.
Well, exactly, because he's always around the camp. You know, he's always around there. So I think that helps him. But Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer are both seen as good possibilities to come into the club as well. They're both currently out of work. They're both available without paying any compensation. I think that's significant. And so this could move quite quickly from here now, but depending on what Jason Wilcox feels from the conversations that he's having with these people. I think that's the question about how it moves on from here. United want to make sure that their next substantive appointment is the right one. They can't afford to keep chopping and changing the manager. They know that. They know how important the next appointment is. But they're also in a really good position this season to try and make Champions League football, so they don't want to throw away that opportunity. So it's a difficult balancing act for them, I think, at the moment. But big breaking news, significant news, I think, this afternoon on Sky Sports News, that 3 former Manchester United favourites, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Michael Carrick and Darren Fletcher, have all been spoken to and are all in the mix to potentially become the next Manchester United interim boss for the rest of the season.
I think we spoke yesterday, as well as the news broke, that there is the potential for the managerial market to really explode this summer. A couple of people we've heard from this afternoon, Premier League managers are out of contract. Then there is the World Cup, where, again, some stellar names may well leave their post after the tournament.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And look, I think you've got to try and separate the two situations that we've got here. United are looking for an interim at the moment, but that could change because they want to make sure they get the right appointment in the summer. And Oliver Glasner is out of contract, as we just heard from him there in the summer. Marco Silva is out of contract. Andoni Iraola is out of contract. And there's also the possibility of Kieran McKenna and Roberto De Zerbi. Now, I'm throwing those names out there. We haven't had any confirmation that they are in Manchester United's thoughts or on their shortlist. But those are the sorts of managers I think they would be considering. And as you say, the fact that a lot of those are much easier to get in the summer is influencing Manchester United's decision here. If you're making such a big, important decision, why would you make that in January, February time when the people you might want to be speaking to you can't get until the summer. I think they're very conscious of that, and that's why it's a very fluid situation at Old Trafford, and particularly at Carrington's training ground right now, with a lot of people talking, a lot of thinking going on. And of course all of this has been brought about because United sacked Ruben Amorim before they wanted to. It all happened pretty suddenly in the end because of that rapid breakdown in relationships between him and the Director of Football, Jason Wilcox. I think there were long-term concerns about what the club felt was his inability to evolve his tactics and work the best with the players that he got. Performances were not great, results weren't great against the likes of Wolves and Everton. So that led to a gradual undermining of the relationship and confidence in the head coach. But it was that explosive meeting he had with Jason Wilcox on Friday which I think brought things to a head. So the fact that United have had to make this decision suddenly and quicker than they wanted to means they're not in a position to make a quick decision now to appoint somebody else. But what this news we're bringing you right now is significant in telling us is that they're starting to make those moves with Solskjaer, Fletcher and Michael Carrick all in the mix potentially to become the next interim boss.